Here we go.
G'day fans, welcome back to another exciting episode of Rip It Off the Card. It is yet another Wednesday, and for the first time in what seems like 100 million throbbing years, we had sunshine outside. It was actually a nice day. None of this freezing cold rain and crap. What's the deal with that, Mr. Aaron? It's all sort of nice and pleasant. What's the go?
I don't know. It was still pretty cold in the shop. There were a lot more people around today, so maybe because the sun came out, so did the people.
Very good. Well, that's good. That's what you want. You know, you want happy and excited fans and nerds and the people. I know sunshine scares a lot of nerds because they're used to being inside watching videos and all the rest of it. But every once in a while, it's nice to know that it does exist and you can venture out and go and pay everybody a bit of a visit. And I like how you said it was cold in the store. It's like, dude, mate, what's the deal with that? You need to warm them up with your good humor and good conversation.
Usually when I use my good humor, you say, Aaron, no.
Very good point. Anybody who watched Toys on Trial last night will see very good examples of Aaron's humor, just skirting the bounds of like decency and bordering on vileness, if you will. Speaking of which, it was good to see that, just put the plug out there, that there was an Austric meeting on Saturday and all the Star Trek nerds got together and the meeting was in fact violated because the Vile himself made his appearance, which was absolutely fantastic. And the reason why I've brought this up, Mr. Aaron, explain this one to me, old son. Paramount Plus, the streaming service, owns all the Star Trek and they've got all the rights for all these shows and all these movies. And yet I turn on Binge today and sure enough, all the Star Trek films and this TV series Prodigy is there. What's the deal with that? I thought Paramount Plus had all of it. Mate, it is confusing my poor little brain. What's the deal?
I don't know. I think they sold the rights to all over the place and now they're trying to get them back, but they can't until the rights run out. I think the more interesting thing from the Star Trek meeting is a wonderful shop called Aaron's Collectibles supplied a gift voucher hoping to get someone on an away mission from the Star Trek meeting out to the shop. And who won the voucher?
Moneybag Sullivan. Can you believe it? Unbelievable. So, very cool.
Who always wins the vouchers?
I love it. Christy said Toys on Trial was very close to a banning. Oh, well, that's actually a good thing. That'll actually boost the ratings up. Normally, negative publicity is what grabs people to it. So, yes, remember, it's the Meryl Streep syndrome. It was Meryl Streep, wasn't it? No, Barbara Streisand syndrome, the house syndrome. Remember they said they took a picture of a house from the sky just completely innocently. She cracked the shits over it. And suddenly everybody wanted to look at the picture. So sometimes it is cool to be bad. Is that right there, Mr. Aaron?
I think it is. I think if you try and cancel something, it's different from trying to ban something. If you ban something, people want it more. If you cancel something, people want it less.
Totally agree. And Guy has said, yes, it was funny. All right, now, this is something important, right? It's like, we haven't had one of these in a couple of years, all right? But you wouldn't believe it. As sad as it is, it's time for one of these. Can you believe it? We had an issue from last week, Mr. Aaron, and I looked at this and I thought, holy guacamole, what is the deal? So we're going to show you a bit from last week's episode. And as you can see, there's a good reason why we've decided to chuck in a bone. So unbelievable. So sit back and see how dorky some people can be. So it was from Kelvin said it right. It's Dracula from 1931. And what gives it away are the aardvarks down the bottom. Why there would be aardvarks in Dracula's castle is anybody's guess. But as soon as I saw this, I knew straight away because they actually showed them in the movie. They obviously, when they were making the movie, they said, we've got some aardvarks, we'll chuck them in. It kind of works, even though it doesn't. I realised afterwards, they're not effing aardvarks, they're armadillos. How did I get that so wrong, Mr. Aaron? What's the deal?
I don't know. This is a toy about collectibles, not like animals and zoology.
The thing is, I knew that they were armadillos, right? And I watched it, and only that entire segment, I only just used the word armadillo once, right? And I'm listening to it, they're not aardvarks. I already knew that. It's like, oh my goodness gracious me, I look like such a knob. I was waiting for someone to say, dude, they are not aardvarks. Aardvark is like a little mouse thing. So,
I know how
armadillos, mate.
I know how you can remember that and never forget it again. Just remember, it's the same name as Natalie Portman's character in Star Wars, Queen Armadillo.
Armadillo. That's exactly right. And you are right. Well, William, it's called the Streisand effect. That's exactly what it is. When you something happens and somebody cracks the shits over it, and then suddenly it just gains all this publicity where there should not have been publicity. So unbelievable. Yes, Mr. Phil, armadillos, not aardvarks. Oh my God, I can't imagine the amount of people watching that last week. Think, mate, dude, how could you get that wrong? And I was absolutely shocked, and I actually did know that. So anyway, I
thought you were going to say it was because we left Blade Runner out of our classic soundtracks or something like that.
Oi, we did too, didn't we? You're a bad dude. And you know what? We barely even referenced Jerry Goldsmith at all in all of our talks. I go, oh my God, we missed Star Trek: The Motion Picture and all. Oh, we are bad nerds, mate. What's the deal with that?
I don't know. Just too many good soundtracks to choose from.
Yeah, very, very cool. I like that. I have dementia. You can't even spell dementia. Even I haven't forgotten how to spell dementia. So things aren't going too bad for me. Anyway, let's move on. Otherwise, we'll never get stuff done. But yes, we have acknowledged that last week we did kind of cock it up. All right, now apparently we've got this. There's a bit of news. Oh, look, there's a bit of Doctor Who stuff. Here we go. So, Mr. Aaron, I believe you've got some hot Doctor Who news that you wish to share with the entire planet, mate. Here we are. You've got everybody a captive audience. What have you got to say?
All 10 of you. Yes, so anyone who's watched regularly knows that we like to report on the cutting edge Doctor Who news, and Character Options, who release the Doctor Who figures, came out this week and said, we're making a huge announcement. It's going to be this fantastic announcement of a new special deal product that's coming out. And this was 2 days ago. So everyone was hanging out. They said it'll be out. The news will be out by midday on Monday for us. So everybody was hanging out to see what this news was going to be. Obviously, it's going to be something super fantastic if they're touting it on the internet. So what was the news? They're doing an online reduction of their Doctor Who sets for £9.99. Now, usually a figure is about £7.99 and a set is £11.99. So two for £9.99 is not too much of a bad deal, except you get a classic series set and they're lumping it with the Friends of the 13th Doctor. Now, we all know what I think of the 13th Doctor and most of her friends as well. And it is one of those things where it's like setting these fans up. We haven't had any Doctor Who releases this year. We're waiting for the new releases. We're waiting to see what we get. And it's like a sucker punch. They're trying to sell the old stock off on us.
Very, very cool. That is so exciting. I'm so excited and I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose control and I think I like it. So there you go. And just quickly, Michael mentioned, yes, it was mentioned last week that it was armadillos, not aardvarks. I just missed it. I'm a knob. What can I say? Eh? Very cool. Now, there's something very related to this Doctor Who thing that you want to sort of share with us. Is that right?
Well, like in a lot of fandoms, the fans revolted straight away, and within moments of the announcement being made, this little comic appeared online, which I thought was funny enough to show. It's of course Peter Griffith from Family Guy going, "Oh my God, the unit 1975 set for a tenner. I want to buy this unit figure set." And then I've got to enlarge my screen because it's too small.
He says, I'll do the other guy's voice. Okay, sir. Okay. And you also get this Friends of the 13th Doctor set.
I do not want it.
But, sir, it's free.
If that Jodie's Companion set is so much as touches my unit set, I will kill you.
There you go. Insert laughter here. So there you go. Yes, Gavin said the Doctor Who fans are revolting. Well, we've always known that. Aaron's been the leader of that revolt for a very long time.
Well, so you know what? The Star Wars fans are infamous. Yeah, they've all got it infamous.
Very, very good. All right, so there you go. So what are you trying to tell us? That the whole thing is complete tripe. Is that right?
Yeah, it was a big non-news event that they hyped up.
Well, Mr. Greg King has summed it up. It was somewhat disappointing. Oh, there you go, eh? But yes, there's nothing worse than being dangled a carrot. I need to find the carrot. Here's a bit of a massive letdown. Yes, very, very good. So, Christy said, thought they might be announcing the 60th anniversary toys. Disappointing. Seems like nobody was happy with the announcement, old son. So,
no, everyone was. The trouble with the internet now, you announce something like that and the speculation builds up and people go, are we going to get this? Are we going to get this? And then if you don't get something good, everyone, wants blood.
And what'll happen is like, oh, someone says they know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and this is what the hot thing is, and it's just clickbait, of course. It's completely rubbish, and how many people get sucked into that, and then they'll say, oh, I heard from this dude that what it is this, and of course, it's just all been completely made up. So there you go. The carrot was a turnip. Yeah, there you go. All right, so that's the end of the docu talk. I'm bored of it already. Other news. This is particularly exciting. These things have come out. I have no idea what they are. It looks particularly cool. The Sectors, Warriors of Symbion. Oh,
I love that. These things are exciting. I have no idea what they are. The Sectors are back. Sectors, as everybody knows, He-Man was one of the great success stories of the 80s, and then every other toy company tried to come up with stuff to compete with it, and Sectors was one of those toys. Wasn't the worst one, wasn't the best one, ran for a couple of years, but is pretty much forgotten now unless you loved them as a kid. Now, someone's got on the bandwagon of re-releasing all this stuff with the dollar signs and nostalgia signs in their eyes, and they have released the first two Sectors in a new series of Sectors. So anyone who grew up with them and has fond memories of these can now collect them again as adults, which is quite amazing because I did not see these ones coming back. Do you remember Sectors, Dad?
Not a hope in hell. The first thing I thought of is when I look at them, I was like, these look like you'd find in like the markets, the knockoffs, the Chinese knockoffs of actual superheroes. They just change the name and the logo, but the images are the actual figures are the same. The logo there, I looked at that just now and I thought, geez, that looks like the First Order from The Force Awakens. So, my Star Wars brain never switches off. And just quickly, what's the deal with these antenna thing that you reckon they'd be breaking off in like no time at all? They'd be like up the vacuum cleaner chute in before you know it. What do you reckon?
Well, they're their antennas because they're insects, but you are absolutely right. When they put stuff like that on toys, kids break them off straight away. Luckily, these aren't for kids. These are adult collectibles.
Of course they are. And I got to say, I've never seen an insect look like an absolute babe, but there you go. And a hunky dude to go with it. So they're meant to be insects, are they?
They are.
Whatever. Oh, well. So the good thing is, fans, if you buy both of them, you've suddenly got an instant collection of the Sector, whatever they call the Sector. I've already moved on the screen. Sectorians or whatever. That's it. Instant collection done. I've got every single one ever released. There's only two.
It's not called an instant collection. It's called an infestation.
Oh, very, very cool. You only buy one. It's like, oh, I've only got 50% of the entire range ever released. You just make it sound really, really cool. And there's only the two of them, which I think is particularly cool. All right. On a completely unrelated note. So insects aren't floating your boat. Maybe this will work for you. Everybody loves a little bit of these. They breathe fire. They fly around. They look particularly cool, especially in the more later movies that we've seen. Of course, some dragon action, mate. And we don't mean Mark Hunter's band either. So what do you reckon?
Yeah, don't you go out in the rain, Dags. It's one of those... It's one of those lines that has been dormant for quite a while. McFarlane has got back into toys. We've reviewed some of his new offerings over the last couple of weeks with superpowers and different Batman stuff. McFarlane Dragons is actually an old toy line. The first wave was 15, 20 years ago, and this is actually wave 8. It's just there's been like a 15 or 12-year gap between wave 7 and wave 8. This is a particularly nice dragon. If anyone likes sort of those... high-end, really detailed, nice dragons. This is a toy version of them. It'd go quite well with the Maltese dragon, actually, if I wanted to come down and pick this one up as well. But the detail on this is absolutely amazing. It's one of those lines where every single dragon was totally different and each one of them was highly detailed. And they all sort of build together into an amazing line of fantasy dragons. And this is, like I said, it's the resurrection of the line that hasn't been around for a long time. So it was unusual, a cool looking figure, and one that will be out pretty soon.
See, while I was waiting for you to finish talking so I could get the old line out, but William beat me to it. So why did it take him so long? Because they were dragging their ass about. So, yes, that was just too good. So
yeah. So that was an interesting one just because that's wave 8 of a discontinued line that's made a comeback.
Very, very cool. Yeah, good old Draco. Exactly right. If you ever want to see really groovy looking dragons, Rain of Fire. Oh, mate, they were awesome. Although, as Moneybag Sullivan, he's not here tonight. Normally he was. We were discussing dragons a couple of years ago in Talk Nerdy to Me. And apparently there's a difference between a dragon, which is 4-legged, and a wyvern, which is 2-legged with the little stumpy arms, all right? And the ones that they've got in Rain of Fire are called wyverns, right? And he made a big song. He had put in big block cannon. Oh, it's a wyvern. It's not a dragon. It's like, holy guacamole. And I had to look it up, and sure enough, he was right. And I hate it when Moneybags is right. So, yeah, that's the thing. But for all intents and purposes, they're all dragons. But yeah, some are four-legged, like these ones are, and some are two-legged with the dumpy arms. So, but yeah, either way, the ones in Rain of Fire. You ever see Rain of Fire? That was just Mickey Mouse as far as
it's a fantastic. My favorite dragon movie is Dragon Slayer, and you can actually find online. Phil Tippett did a mock-up with a pejorative, I can't remember its name, pejorative something, and the Rancor having a fight during the time when they were filming Return of the Jedi. So you can find that dragon in Jabba's dungeon.
Oh, very cool. Now, there's something very particular about the Dragon Slayer dragon that is like legendary as far as the world of special effects is concerned. Just, I know we're deviating a bit. Do you know what it is? What made the Dragon Slayer dragon cutting edge as far as special effects were concerned?
The first go motion that he did.
That's right. They just invented go motion at that point, and they used the dragon for that. And of course, the thing with go motion is the thing actually moves, and you get all the motion blur, and it looks completely real, even if it didn't appear until right at the end of the movie. So he just is like, "Get to the effing dragon, guys! Forget all the other shit," and it finally turned up in the end. So, awesome movie. Yes, I agree, Mr. Dale. Rain of Fire is an awesome dragon movie, worth it for when the dragon goes up the castle and just cuts loose with the fire in the breath. Thanks for coming, kids. We're going to barbecue the hell out of the lot of you. Absolutely spectacular.
Oh,
so
you can't go wrong with Dragonheart though. Sean Connery as the dragon, directed by Jonathan Frakes.
No, oh yeah, because Jonathan Frakes, when he directs movies like you Thunderbirds, he just can do no wrong. No, we're going right off on a tangent, which is particularly cool. But yes, if you haven't seen Rain of Fire, it's absolutely spectacular. And Matthew McConaughey looks completely different to how he is now. He's an American with a bald head and he's got all this sort of shit going on. Let's get on with the show, mate. Now, all right, as always, what we like to do is show you something which is particularly cool. And of course, we're not going to do that. We're going to show you something that's completely rubbish because it's now time for this.
Useless Pop of the Week!
Now, as always, we're going to show you a picture of a pop and you have to guess what it is. And I looked at this and I thought, I have no idea how to describe it. Mr. Aaron, what the hell are we looking at?
Well, that's the reason I picked it, because it is one of those pops. It's from an old show. I don't know if anyone will guess it while we're waffling on. It's a cartoon show. I saw it.
Dude, we don't waffle. We're here to educate everybody.
Are you not entertained? You've got something that almost looks like the ghost from Pac-Man or something like that. So if anyone's going to guess that, it's not one of the ghosts from Pac-Man. It's not from Mr. Men, though, although that is a really good choice. It is one of those things where I do wonder, it is so unlike a pop, why bother releasing it as one when it's obviously the wrong shape and a different kind of toy? So it's
go on.
It's one of those things that I would not have known unless I'd seen it. It popped up, pop, and I was just like, why are they releasing it? It looks like a cactus but blue instead of green.
Ed's, of course, has gone to the worst jokes in the universe. I want your pop, you can't stop. I think we've mentioned that multiple times on the show. No one else has anyone. Hang on, what? A Sexy Land party glove. Well, actually, that's not far from that kind of works, doesn't it? You've got room to put your hand up there and party. So there you go. And even Chrissy thought it was first thought was a finger puppet. Well, you're all completely wrong. What is it? Of course, it's blue. What the effing hell is a blue, dude?
So it's from an old Netflix show, not Netflix, Nickelodeon show, which I don't know if it even made it to Australia, and that's probably why it's one of those things that no one here was very good at. It was for the home of imaginary friends, for orphaned imaginary friends, and I just thought, now if you're going to make a pop about orphans, I don't want to adopt that one.
Very good. Yeah, that just looked complete rubbish to me, but blue. And I thought, yep, okay. The only blue that I know is the stuff you put in your dunny. Yeah, the old blue loo.
Lou.
Indeedy doody doddy. Yes, that looks completely pointless, dude. I do wonder if anybody's going to go, oh my God, I've been waiting for this for years to come out. I can't get it quick enough. What do you reckon?
No, I don't think anyone will be.
Oh, hang on. Yes, it's been summed up in one word, and I totally agree with this one guy. Absolutely fantastic garbage. Yep, well done, sir. So you can't get better than that. Oh, dear. Yes, a what? Nickelodeon. Yes, a network that doesn't exist in Australia. So, yes, let's stick with the garbage thing. I totally agree. Now, speaking of some garbage, right? I guess it's now time we should move into this segment. Now, are you trying to tell me that we have some garbage there, Mr. Aaron?
I am. Sometimes we get a delivery and it's disappointing because it's surprisingly good. And sometimes you get a delivery and it's exactly what you think, and that's a load of old crap. And this week I've spent $20 on a load of old crap.
Very good. All right, let's kick it off. What did you get? What did you order?
So, well, there's two things about this. I ordered two things together, and usually when I order two things together, both things arrive at once. And if they don't, I never ever get the second thing and then start getting asked for more postage for it. And I ordered the Book of the Dead and also a Vigo the Carpathian portrait. Now, the Book of the Dead has shown up, but the book was portraitless. So this is what we ordered. It was a prop replica of the Necronomicon from the Evil Dead series. The Evil Dead series has a couple of different versions of the book, but the one that they've chosen and the one they were selling looks actually quite good. It's got real leather. That's how it was advertised, a real leather binding. And then it's got replicas of the actual demon summoning spells on the inside of the book. And you can see that it's quite a substantial tome. It's got quite good detail on the outside. A lot of sculpting goes into that, and on the back of it, it's even got what you could call a human ear, because it is actually bound in human flesh.
Very good. That sounds very, very exciting. The kind of nighttime reading that everybody would like to look at. It's definitely a good replacement for a little golden book for your kid. So that's what was ordered. As you can see, it looks very, very cool. What did you get?
Well, I didn't get something bound in human flesh, luckily, but it wasn't in real leather either. It was in, I guess, faux plastic, that kind of cheap stuff you cover books with. There is no raised detail on the book at all. Somehow the advert showing all this amazing detail has gone to a book with printed detail on it. Probably it doesn't look so bad in the pictures just because I've taken nice pictures of it, but you can see that it's totally flat. There's no raised surfaces. There's no sculpting. It isn't like a molded or anything like that, and it isn't leather. It looks like you've taken the pictures down to Officeworks, basically told the workers behind the counter at Officeworks, run this up and bind it into a book, and they've shot it off and done it. Now, I have got it here. I think if you give me the full screen so you can see it, you can actually see that it is flat. The one in the picture looked like it was about 5 times as fat as that. You can see, I don't know if you can see how cheaply it's bound, but you can see it's just tucked over and stuck down. And it does have, I guess they've found scans of it and printed it out somewhere.
No expense spared, eh?
No, it's no scan spared on the scam.
Very, very cool. Just quickly, I'm going to go back to here and go back to here. Dale said, bound in human flesh. What the heck were you talking about? No, the real thing, what he bought wasn't going to be like that. It was meant to be leather. It's supposed to represent human flesh, as from the book in the movie. Yeah. Don't stress, kid. It's not a big deal. And got the ear at the back as well.
Ear on the back.
And Christy said she was hoping this would be something that was going to be good. Nah. Dear. And I love this one from Greg King. Oh no, why do I feel the spells? Well, actually, probably subliminal messages. Be a note from Ronnie saying you need to send another $10 to get the better version. Flat and uninspiring. I totally agree with you on that one. Oh, here we go. They contacted a scrapbook. Oh, yeah. Cop that. We're talking about contact clear, the sticky stuff that goes around books. Oh, that is grouse. I like this one. My tobacco pouch is scarier than that. Oh my goodness. Well, it's only $20. Cut the dude some slack just because they may have sold 30 million of these things all around the world and made an absolute massive profit. It's got nothing to do with it. So, but if you want to see what they look like side by side comparison, what you ordered versus what you got. What do you reckon, dude?
Yeah, so you can see that the one advertised is obviously a lot more detailed and a lot better than the one that actually turned up. The one that turned up is the lowest form of replica, where it is just a printed out copy folded.
In other words, it's just classed as cheap shit. So, so what that's trying to tell you there, Mr. Aaron, I think we've kind of got this figured out. Is clearly
now that's poor value.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Is that right?
I haven't got the conversation with Ronnie, but Ronnie has asked that we don't use that anymore, and I've told him I'm sorry. We have to use it when there is poor value of foot. Now,
well, it's either that. Sorry, it's either now that's poor value, or we say now that's Ronnie full of shit. Oh, goodness gracious me. I like it. Yes, Ronnie is a master of the dark arts. Yeah, dark arts are ripping people off. So that's an example. Now that'll be in the store. So Aaron's store. If you want to actually see it, it's because as we said, we've got a glass cabinet full of the Greg King's cheaper things stuff, and you can see it for real and have a look for yourself. Was it worth $20? Probably, but once again, it's that whole thing about what's advertised and promoted and what you're getting. And if they promote something and they say it's got all this attention and care and detail has gone into it, and you just get some cheap piece of rubbish, and that's just false advertising. So there you go.
And it doesn't smell very good either.
Oh, well, dude, you're not supposed to be whiffing human flesh, son. So there you go. Very, very good. I agree with Colin. It would have been disappointing if it was not poor value. And I'll tell you what, now this is if Ronnie's watching this, he's going to love this. When the book turned up a couple of days ago, Aaron just sent me a message. He said, mate, it's a steaming turd. More blunt you can never get. But what did Ronnie think of it? Now, of course, when a product turns up, Aaron contacts Ronnie and said, dude, give us a review of the thing that you've just sent us. Now, what do you think Ronnie had to say? Did Ronnie say, yep, dude, we've just stitched you up, sent you some complete rubbish? Or did he think that this was the ants' pants? Well, we've got his review right here. It's all in text. Aaron's going to have to read it out. And here we go.
Do you love Satan and want to summon evil demons? Now you can. This book is bound in super realistic human skin, but paper, so it's not gross. Turn the pages of the Necronomicon, and every page is a work of art. See all original paintings from your favorite horror movie with summoning spells for demon ancestors. If you have this book, no need to fear. It is not really real, can't really resurrect the dead and cause zombie havoc. You can pretend it in cosplay sense, and that you are evil bad master necromancer and want to cause evil dead panic. The finish is so realistic, you will think it is actual, very real prop used in Hollywood. The inside is all accurate demon summoning spells too, so that's all good. It's evil, but also very lucky to own. I would give this 10 out of 10 for value and 10 out of 10 for accuracy to real prop. But one or more, buy one or I think it was meant to be buy one or more. You can't do wrong.
How about that? I mean, he must have looked up the word necromancer, necronomicon. I mean, they aren't easy words to spell. So clearly the old Google translates are working overtime on that one. So I caught this one from Kelvin. Oh, jeez. Oh, don't hold back this.
I find it surprising Kelvin's taken the whole year to work that out.
Oh, dear. Very, very good. Yeah. You don't want to smell bad. You don't want to die at a wit. How about that? Isn't that absolutely spectacular? He reckon it's completely a Hollywood prop, totally realistic, absolutely fan. Oh, my God. It's just
so for anyone who hasn't watched all of his reviews, every single item has been 10 out of 10 on value and accuracy so far. I don't know what it'd take for him to give a poor review.
Now, two things, and this is true, right? So, did Ronnie charge for the extra steam? I like that comment, Colin. But this is the most realistic one of the lot. As you know, it's complete cheap rubbish. But William said, "Oh yeah, Aaron will sell it for $60." And if he does, if someone walks in and picks it up, he'll just order another one. There we go. Aaron, you've sold it to me. I have a co-worker who could do with an evil spell being cast their way. Well, there you go. If the spells don't work, just chuck the book at them, dude. It's the next worst thing. So there you go.
Yeah.
Love it. What a load of crap. Yeah, I think so. And the fact that Ronnie thinks, mate, it's the greatest thing ever. You can't do any wrong. So love it. Very, very cool. All right. We need to move on. Now, this one is a bit of a carryover from last week. And even I've got on with this is actually a very, very interesting sort of segment that's coming up. Now, of course, you've just had Greg King's Cheaper Things with complete rubbish and tripe. Now it's time to move on with some more rubbish and tripe. And, of course, it's now time for the Lord Vile's Vile File, Mr. Aaron. What's going on?
Well, Lord Vile has been a bit of a cinemaphile the last couple of weeks, hasn't he? We looked at bad, good children's movies last week, and we had another correspondence from the person who suggested the bad children's movies, pushing it for another topic. But I thought it was a good one, so I passed it on to the Vile, and the Vile has got back to us with another ripper of an episode. Dear Lord Vile, I really appreciate your recommendations for kids' movies. I wonder if you could follow this up with the movie that you think has the vilest CGI effects. Yours in all my vileness, Alan Cole.
Now, I'm going to just jump in there. Last week, Alan Cole decided to say he's level 3 Sith acolyte. Now he's just knocked that off. So clearly he's just decided to demote himself back to being just a normal dude. So I don't know what the deal is with that. But
I think we mocked him about it online, and he's quietly removed that title from his signature.
It's pretty funny, actually. This is actually quite a good one because a lot of people will relate to a lot of this. So it's time for a bit of vile CGI. And I tell you what, there's a lot more out there than you realize. So where do you want to go, Mr. Aaron?
Here we go. Where has the Vile taken us? You would think that most CGI was in crappy, cheap movies, but the Vile has gone through and found some crap CGI in some pretty expensive movies.
Now, I tell you, I love it when someone has a spelling mistake, right? It was supposed to be Jaws 3, and he's got Jawas 3. Right? There was no Jawas 3 Star Wars movie.
You know what? Chucking a couple of Jawas into Jaws 3 would have actually improved the movie.
Intriguey. All right, so what we're looking at was looking at bad visual effects. Now, of course, the CGI industry has actually been around since the late 80s, early 90s. And, of course, it was a big thing at the time. They're chucking all the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park and the Abyss and all this other stuff with the water tentacle. And it's all very, very cool. But not every movie gets it right. Some of them, either they just didn't have the money, they didn't have the time, or they didn't have the talent. And unfortunately, a lot of this stuff was dated really badly. Now, a lot of people will think of some really good examples. I'd be curious to see whether we think the same thing, or the Vile thinks the same thing that you do. So very, very cool. Anyway, we're going to kick this one off. I haven't seen this one, so you're going to have to explain this, and away we go.
So Lawnmower Man was cutting edge when it came out at the time. It was based on a short story by Stephen King. It had Pierce Brosnan in. It was one of the first movies that really dealt with, I guess, virtual reality, the online world, and had a lot of CGI graphics. Unfortunately, they probably promised more than they could deliver, and the CGI in it is probably worse now than your kids can knock up on their computer at home in their spare time. When you went into the CG world, it was obviously meant to be the highlight of the movie. Instead, it was a psychedelic shitfest, really.
You got to be careful when you compare what happened then to what you can do today, because the world has changed a lot in computer technology. So it's unfair. It's not judging apples for apples. So if you can say, oh, we could do a much better today. Well, of course we can. It's 20, 30 years later, for crying out loud. So you got to be cut a bit of slack. But it's when some films have got massive budgets, had massive visual effects companies working for them, and they still produced really poor end stuff. That's when you go, yeah, you guys kind of screwed the pooch on that one. So I just want to make that out.
Also got to remember that this was up in around the same time as Terminator 2. So
yeah, that's 1991. So that's like 31 years ago. So you got to, cut a bit of slack in that regard. Yeah, of course, everybody's going to be able to do better stuff today. Max Headroom was better. Oh, there you go. He's a product of the 80s. Now, this one, I never saw the movie, but yes, tell us all about it.
So this is Die Another Day. It was the final Pierce Brosnan James Bond movie. And I think one of the things that a lot of people agree was flawed with his era was they relied on more and more outlandish set pieces and visual effects and gadgets. And this often pushed not only the boundaries of the story, but what they could actually portray on screen. So the climactic scene of Die Another Day ended with Bond surfing down a giant tidal wave, and then his surfboard sort of turning into a parasail and being washed up into the beach on Iceland, I think. And it really is one of those things. It looked bad when it came out. It looks worse now because, as Dag said, technology has come along, so it's helped date the movie. The thing I find incredible is you look at some of the James Bonds in the 60s and 70s that use practical effects, and you can tell they're models, but they're still good. But this CGI has dated really badly. Jump the
iceberg. Yeah, cop that. Christie's stepped in for Rusky Babes with a fun factoid. I didn't get this. first CGI crap was done by, I don't know what that is, Hippogriff in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Harry Potty, good old Pottyhead may still pop up in this particular episode. You never know, Christy. So very, very cool.
So I think she's saying the first CGI character to take a crap on screen was the Hippogriff.
Okay, cool. Now, okay, so everything in like it's cutting edge. You can do anything you want in the movies, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes when you see it on the big screen, you go, "Oh yeah, that kind of didn't cut the mustard." And this was a sequence I don't think a lot of people were very fond of in Attack of the Clones, but it's the now. Do you know what these cows are called?
Giant ticks.
Good on you. For those who don't know and love a little bit of nerdiness, and yes, I already knew this. I didn't have to look it up. They're called shacks. So there you go.
Yes. It looks like a Shatland screen as well, doesn't it?
Shack.
So Dags was very forgiving of Lawnmower Man. Yeah, part cow, part shat. But what's the excuse for having bad CGI in a movie with this budget and where you own the effects company?
Yeah, and I think, look, I'm taking a guess, but I reckon they maybe CGI Hayden Christensen riding this thing as well, and it didn't look good because when he fell off, it looked really, really artificial. So it was definitely one of the weaker moments of the movie, visual effects wise. Yeah, definitely.
Yes. Is that Hayden Christensen or is it an ink blot on the screen? Because I can't tell.
Oh, well, obviously on the big screen you saw it, but it didn't look completely realistic when he fell off. So it was definitely for the narrative of the story, it made sense as to what happened because Padme thinks he's injured and runs over and he's perfectly okay. But the way it was done, it was kind of a bit dorky, yeah. And those cows the shacks, they do look pretty stupid. So not one of the show's finer moments. So there you go. Now this one that came up, I heard about this after the fact, and this only came out a couple of years ago. So this is brand new stuff, right? And this is what happens when you have a problem with one of your actors and you've got to make a physical change to them and they're one of the stars of the movie. What do you do? And of course, it's the old Superman in the Joss Whedon version of Justice League.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you had a problem with Ezra Miller and had to CG him.
Get on with it.
So I think most people will know the story. The movie was finished, but there was a lot of reshoots. In between finishing the movie, he took the movie Mission Impossible, I think it was, and grew a mustache. And when he came back to do the reshoots, his contract with the new movie, they wouldn't let him shave the mustache. So I said, that's okay. We'll film you with a mustache and we'll CGI it out. And obviously, they didn't realize that doing the top lip of an actor is maybe one of the hardest things to do realistically ever, because every scene where they've done the CG, it's instantly obvious that there's something wrong. And they say the uncanny valley happens when they CGI an entire person. I think that happened on this when they just did the mouth.
It's an interesting sort of conundrum to be in, isn't it? And I agree, because he's the star of the show. He would have been like gigantic on the screen. And imagine saying, well, my job is to like remove the mustache and put an artificial lip in, for thousands of shots, whatever. And there's no way they're going to get them all perfect, especially if they're under time constraints and all the rest of it. So it's one of those little funny moments in the movies. And I think once you hear about it, you're thinking, I want to watch the movie just to look for it, to see where they've kind of screwed the pooch. So, not a good one, dude. So I like it. He was punching the kisser too many times. Yeah, that's completely true. So, yes, that was never going to be easy. And I can't imagine somebody in the visual effects company saying, oh, my resume, I spent 6 months painting out friggin', I've forgotten the actor's name, painting out his top lip.
Henry Cavill.
Oh, yeah, Henry Cavill. Just look at it under his nose and in between, that just drive you completely batshit. But they obviously had to do it, and you are right. They wouldn't allow him to shave the mustache off. What do you do? Now, this one, even when I saw this in the cinema, it was like the first movie was fantastic, and the visual effects were excellent. The second movie was really, really good. They got right to the end when the bad guy appears, and it looked complete shit. And, of course, we're talking about the Scorpion King in The Mummy Returns. How crap was this, dude?
Well, the story goes that this wasn't the finished version of the movie, and it just had to hit the release date, and didn't have enough time to do the CGI. And they said, well, we can only give you the temp CGI. And the Universal said, good enough, and released it. which I think is a bit of a disservice to the movie makers and to the actors and everyone, because it is generally a good movie all the way through, and obviously a big budget movie. And if they didn't have time for the effects, they obviously had the budget. It was just a time issue, and it really just ruined the big finale of the movie. What I didn't put up, because it's very hard to see what's happening, the end of the movie also has this big jungle whirlwind, which just looks like something off the Nintendo 64 rather than something that should be at the end of a big budget movie.
Completely ruined it. Absolutely ruined it. Collins made a mention here about the mustache. May have been easy to use artificial mustache on the mission, but no, why should they? I mean, the guy's contracted to be in the film. Grow the mustache, don't take it off. It's the other film that screwed up, right?
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, we need to do reshoots." So I said, well, my contract says don't shave it off. For him, as far as Henry's concerned, I won't shave it off. They want me to keep it on. It's good for me. Why should the other production suffer for this production screw up? So in the end, it was like, too bad, so sad, guys. Can you imagine the raw footage, though, of Superman with a mustache? That would be freaky.
That would be pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Hang on. So he puts on the glasses and he's got the mustache. Nobody's ever going to recognize Clark Kent anymore.
Maybe they should have gone through the whole movie and put a mustache on everything, because it's obviously easier to put a mustache on.
Well, that's it. So he's done the Clark Kent thing. They realize taking the glasses off. Like, if I take my glasses off right now, you don't even know it's me anymore, do you? So
oh, there you go.
I've just appeared. So if you put the mustache on, maybe that helps with the disguise. Yeah, I mean, he couldn't, but geez, that's funny, isn't it? Superman has come to clean the pool. Oh dear. I knew an IT guy who once used that same joke, but he said, "I've come to install a server," and I thought it was just hysterical. Anyway, so it worked in the 50s TV series, but it doesn't work these days. But anyway, let's move on. So we mentioned Harry Potter earlier on. Well, good old Pottyhead, for all its greatness and all its fantastic, didn't get out of the CGI crapville scenario. And I don't know who this character is. I don't know if that's something that Chrissy mentioned earlier, but there you go.
Well, Chrissy mentioned the Hippogriff, which wasn't too bad a character with its CGI crap, but this is a mountain troll, and it had CGI boogies, which are probably the first CGI character to have boogies. And it is one of those things, again, where Harry Potter was a big budget movie. It was a very successful movie, but then they had a couple of questionable scenes. I didn't put up, there was also a centaur in this, which is very uncanny valley. And also you've got the Vial there, who's Lord Voldemort, the first CGI version, which is horrible as well.
I just saw this comment and I thought I couldn't help myself. So Jacqueline, good to see Jacqueline's joined us. Is that superhero porn? So in other words, you've got Superman, he takes the glass off, still got the mustache on, and chicka chicka bah. Bad dags. All right. You brought it on, Jacqueline. Don't blame me. So there you go. Very, very cool. Yeah, so good old Harry Potter. I mean, yeah, to be fair, they were churning these movies out pretty quickly. They had to do it before the kids all grew up, and so they weren't going to get it perfect every time. But it's funny because when you watch a lot of movies, you can sometimes see the visual effects and go, okay, I could deal with it. It looks shit, but you know what? It's still groovy no matter what. The downside is like when you watch them 10, 12, 20 years later and they go, oh my God, that looks completely horrible. And there are some movies with the visual effects, Terminator 2 being one and Jurassic Park being another, where they still hold up even today. But other movies, as we mentioned with Mummy Returns, by today's standards, all right, it was crap then. It's now amateurish by even by professional standards there as well. Yeah. All right, so not all of it is about special effects and special characters and fantastical worlds and dragons and bloody things with snot sticking out of their noses. Sometimes it's just basic effects. You just need shit to just crash. And of course, in Air Force One, when the plane crashes, it looked a bit on the Povo side. Is that what you're trying to tell me there, Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, I guess when you see the still pictures of it, you can't tell how bad it actually is. But it is another one of those films where great movie all the way through, and then a couple of bad effects just let it down right at the end. Now, obviously, they're at the beginning of sort of being able to do the models and shots like this in CGI. And the crazy thing is they did make a model, a fantastic one of Air Force One for a lot of the movie. But when it came to the crash at the end, they thought that giving the plane the size and volume that they wanted, they couldn't do it with a model effect. So they wanted to go with CGI. So suddenly you've got this plane that takes you right out of the movie because you kind of go, wow, that is a bad special effect. You've got to remember now they have all these programs to get water looking exactly right. Yeah. Back then, the water stuff just didn't work properly. The weight of the plane doesn't look properly. The way it lands, it doesn't it doesn't look like a model, but it doesn't look like a plane either. It looks like a sort of really good animated plane crash. Not a good way to end the movie.
Yeah, it does, and I agree. It does take you out of the production because it's been a dramatic movie the whole way through. And you are right with water; it took them years to get water right. And I'm sure a lot of old school visual effects technicians, used to use models and like water. They would have said, "Mate, just chuck a big ass model of a plane in the water, and it looks spectacular." So sometimes with the CGI craze, it was like, "Oh, let's just digitize everything," not realizing that some things just weren't going to work. So, and they say, "Oh, it's as good as we can get it," but if it still looks crap, you're right, it takes people out of the story. So, yeah, you just got to do things the way they used to be, and you can get some really, really good results. But all good fun. Now, a lot of it's very funny. This one was an interesting one, right? At the time, this was cutting edge. So we talk about 1997. It was cutting edge. It was like, oh my God, how groovy is this? Even if it didn't look right, your brain just accepted it and go, you know what? I still like it. But within a couple of years, it was just looked as being unbelievably terrible. And of course, we're talking about the old Chubby the Fat in the special edition of Star Wars.
And what you say is interesting because Star Wars, when they did the special edition, was really George Lucas doing the showcase of what could be done with CGI characters for when they finally made Episode 1. And you're absolutely right. When people went and saw it with the CGI Dewbacks and CGI Jabba the Hutt, everyone was like, wow, this is amazing to finally see. But it was, I think, the nerd in all of us finally getting to see these scenes we wanted to see, rather than having a critical eye and going, hang on a second, Jabba doesn't look like the Jabba we know and isn't even close to as good as the Jabba. And when you look at it now, it just proves to me that the practical effects in a puppet work far, far better than CGI.
It's very funny. I had a mate of mine who actually went to Skywalker Ranch, stood like a few feet away from George Lucas when they premiered this scene in 1996, I think it was. And it was like, oh my God, how groovy is that? Especially because we all knew there was a human being, an actor there originally, and they replaced it with the slug version and whatever. And yeah, it's like the brain has just said, oh, we've just like leaps and bounds in the future. Even though it was only going to last a very, very short period of time, because once people realize actually it's not that good after all. And it was totally unnecessary for the film, but it's the way it goes. And as a result, what are you trying to say here there, dude?
Well, we've got a special guest reviewer on, Mia Farrow from Rosemary's Baby, and she's using the quote from it. What have you done to him? What have you done to his eyes, you maniacs? And if you look at Jabba's eyes, it really is a horrible letdown. There's an entire behind the scenes thing on the original puppet where they show the original eyes and how they dilate and how they make them move, and they do look like a real set of eyes. And then when you look at this, you just wonder what they were thinking and how they could have thought that actually looked any good.
Yeah, exactly right. As it is from the original Jabba the Hutt puppet, that's left of the eyes, and they're actually on display at an exhibition in Sydney about 4 years ago, and it was like, oh my God, it's the real thing. That's all that's left is the eyes. Yes, exactly right. Where were we? Calvin City wanted the original release. Well, yeah, you can still get it. You have to download it though. And yeah, about Toshi Station, that eventually appeared in other versions. So yes, I know. And I guess had he looked, as in Jabba looked like the '83 version, it would have been like, oh wow. But it just looked like a cheap knockoff.
The crazy thing.
Exactly right.
That they updated the CG from the cinema version to the DVD version, and it still looks crap.
Yeah, and I think what did not help is then they go, all right, we'll go back to puppets, and of course they made a Yoda puppet for Phantom Menace, and that looked rubbish, and they eventually replaced it with a digital one. You can't win sometimes. All right, so get into some hedgehog action.
Now this is a redeemed one because I think people who follow this type of thing would know there's two different versions of Sonic there, and the original version was in the trailer and looks nothing like the cute Sonic that everyone knows and loves. And there was such fan uproar from the trailer going, oh my gosh, what have they done to Sonic, that they delayed the movie and redid the entire CG to give you that second version of Sonic, which is much more screen accurate to the original version. So we're looking at a bullet that's been dodged. But interestingly enough, Ugly Sonic is now a character that was in the Chip and Dale movie as sort of a mocking of how bad CGI can be. So even though this didn't make it to the screen, it's worthy of mentioning just because people are so critical of these things now.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? So, and you are right. These days, there's no real excuse for ballsing something up. If you've been through it all, virtually everything's been done. And if you make a mistake now, clearly people are going to go, well, there's no excuse for it. I mean, we've been through all the crappy shit, all the crappy stuff, and we've learned from our mistakes. Having said that, sometimes what sounded like a good idea at the time doesn't always work. And on paper, it was excellent, as in like they write it out. What could possibly go wrong? Anyway, they make the thing and it just gets panned to the max. And one of the reasons why I got panned was because of its visual effects. And of course, we're talking about Cats. Oh my goodness gracious me! What do they do, Mr. Aaron?
I don't know. I actually do think this is one of those movies that will be so bad it's good and get a cult following in the future because the music's there. It's just they really ramped up the uncanny valley. They didn't do cats. They didn't do people. They did sort of a mixture in between. They motion capped everyone. They turned them into cats. They all did their real performances trying to capture, you know, the eyes and the gestures and everything. But by going down the path of turning them into cats, it was pretty much derided and hated by everyone. So the original fans of Cats didn't like it, the critics didn't like it, and just the general audience didn't like it. And that's why it is one of the Vile's favourite movies about cats.
Love it. Yep. It seemed like a good idea at the time. The funny thing is, there were some people who actually argued and said, you could have just used the original cat suits from the stage play and it would have worked. Although someone somewhere's clearly said, oh no, it's a multi-million-dollar movie. We've got to jazz it up. Let's see, right. Make a hybrid between a cat character and a human being and merge it. How good is this? And of course, they had to CG all this shit and make it all happen. And it's like unbelievable. So, Michael, good to see Michael joining us. I think you're right. Very furry and may become a cult. Definitely for a certain individual. I haven't watched it. I've put it on my list to watch, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But I'm keen to see what went on because it was a train wreck in the end. And of course, for all the time, the money, the effort, and the energy, it just got absolutely on Rotten Tomatoes. It's like, I think it's 0%. It's just like everybody hated it. So even Guy said it was horrific. There you go. So we finished the best segment on the worst movie, which is particularly cool. Now, what are you trying to tell me about all these particular movies and their visual effects there, Mr. Aaron?
Well, the Vile has perused them, he's replayed them, he's screened them, he's shared them with us, and they are all well and truly violated.
Totally agree. How good is that, eh? Oh, yes, the dark parts of the CGI special effects industry. And imagine being one of those people who said, I worked on that, and I busted my ass for it, and it came out crap. So there you go. Oh, I love it.
Which busting an ass, you know that they had to go and remove all the cats' asses because originally they were in there and the studio said, oh, we can't really have that. So that might have been what was wrong with it.
That's actually one of the downsides of the entire sort of industry. They'll produce something and then some wag at a studio says, can we change that? And you go, do you realize how many hundreds of thousands of hours it's going to take to do that? And if it can't be done in the time frame, sometimes being a visual effects technician is going to give you grey hairs and a shorter lifespan. So there you go. Even Adzi has said for the 30th anniversary of VT, replacing the guns with the radios. I have actually watched a special, there's a documentary on Disney Plus about the history of ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, and they actually show the raw footage of the dudes with the police with the guns. And I thought filmed in 1981, I go, oh, how good's that? All right. So it's time for a bit of interaction now. You've all been listening to us gurgle on. Now it's time to whip out your thoughts and views on a particular segment that we love having here. Speaking of BT, how good's that? And it's time for this. Ooh, baby, do you know that's what... All right, so what are we talking about tonight for our eBay segment, Mr. Aaron?
Well, because our main segment is looking at cereal toys and premiums, we're going to look at cereal toys and premiums on eBay as well. So anyone who collects this kind of thing might be in with a inside chance of getting these ones right.
Dale has summed it up beautifully. Turd cows, flesh books, and cats' asses. You won't find them anywhere else except I'm ripping off the card.
If we ever release this on DVD, that's got to be the quote that goes on the back, isn't it?
Oh, so totally agree with you on that one. All right, so that's awesome, Dale. I love it. Yeah. And there's, you know what? There's more to come. All right, keep going, dude.
So for every major movie, it seemed for a while that they would bring out a serial premium box and movie tie-in. This was for the movie Gremlins when it originally came out in the 80s. And of course, what they would do is get a regular cereal and then they would brand it to be Gremlins. So you can pretend you're eating Gremlins poop or whatever, Mogwai pellets. So this is one of those boxes. Now, Gremlins it's not unpopular, but not the most popular movie ever as well. This might be a harder item to find. So when you're guessing how much this went for, you might consider that. This might be a hard box to get. Is the Gremlin a rare box, or are you going to find it in Greg King's garage sale? What do you think, Dad?
Yeah, the only problem is you can't eat that cereal after midnight. Now, Gavin has asked, why did they have guns in ET for kids anyway? And that's because, as the audience, we knew that ET was a cute and cuddly alien, but the authorities didn't. They would have seen all aliens as a threat, right? Even if they're small with a head on a stalk. So they wouldn't have known. So they just would have gone for the old, he's a threat scenario until we know otherwise. That's the reason why they had the guns. All right, Gremlins cereal box. Ralston, that's going way back. All right, Ange said 62 cents, but he said that before he actually saw the item. So I don't know if you want to refresh that, Ange. Guy has gone for 9 cents. There you go. 25 bucks for Kelvin. Colin, mate. Sorry, I missed the comma. $5 for Kelvin. Colin, sorry. Adzi has said 5. Michael has said 35. Yeah, Gavin, you stole my joke. Don't eat it after midnight. And what happens if you pour water into it? That's never going to end well. Very, very good. Christy Evans using the same joke, $27. Gavin has gone for $90. How good is that? Phil has cocked up 1,000. Mate, it's only a box of bloody Gremlins cereal with nothing in it, I don't think. So there you go. And Bob has said 300 hairballs. How good is that? Gremlins cereal box. For a lot of people like us, we would have said, I've never even seen this before. But is Gremlins stuff collectible? That's the question. William has said $50. Ralston Gizmo original collectible rare. Remember and there were 22 bids. Sorry, I covered up a little bit. So there's obviously a bit of interest in this. So there you go. Very, very good. All right. So how much do you reckon it went for, kids? We'll move on to this one. So Gremlins cereal box from Ralston Gizmo original collectible rare. It's just the box by itself looking particularly cool. And it went for a whopping $172 for a box of cereal, Mr. Aaron.
Is Bob the closest there? I think it is one of those things where it isn't something that people might think they need in their collection, but if you're a Gremlins collector and you've got all the toys and stuff and you look for unusual stuff, this would be a damn hard piece to find because not a lot of people would have kept it at the time.
Totally agree. Gavin, you still got to cough up $80 or something like that, but I think you've got it all, son. So very, very cool. So it's an actual piece of Gremlins, yes. And Guy has said, Jeepers, well done. So there you go, just a box of cereal by itself. But don't forget, if you're in Australia, we would never have seen these. So for Australian collectors or European collectors, they would have gone completely nuts. Speaking of going nuts, how about that? These guys have already left town. So how much is their cereal worth there, Mr. Aaron?
I don't know. Do you remember Vita Brits?
Of course I do. I used to love Vita Brits. I love Vita Brits. I didn't like Wheat Bix, so I was a Vita Brits kid myself.
I was a cereal whore. It was whoever was advertising the best thing, we would get that cereal. But I do remember Vita Brits doing a couple of really cool promotions, He-Man being one of them. This was a bit older for me to remember, but we all know Kiss is pretty popular. This is probably a rare box, and if you are a Kiss collector, an Australian Kiss cereal box is going to be one of those sort of holy grail things that you don't see very much. This is from 1980. It's Vita Brits, was only done in Australia as a promo. So what do you think this would go for?
Now, using the magnifying glass of truth, in the white stuff, it says like seller, sold, something like that, $6 each. So it has been written on, so it's not a mint in box, so to speak. All right, so where are we? I think Ange got in first at 620. Oh, suddenly the prices have gone up. 620. Gavin is at 469. Christie's at 179. Collins at 200. Michael's at 600. Oh my God! It's just for a box of Vita Brits. 250 for Phil. Guy has said 300. As you said, you can still get them. What, Vita Brits? And certainly not this box you can't. William has said 30. Adzi has said 550. And 250 for William. So there you go. And Bob has said 500 farewell to us. Well, they'll always be back again. Maybe you can get them to sign it. And Michael's changed it to revise it to $500. So there you go. Yes, unmasked a Vita Brits box. Very, very cool. It has been used, obviously, and has been written on. So be aware of that. But there were 9 bids. So clearly somebody out there was keen to get it. All right, how much do you reckon it went for? Kiss Vita Brits 1980. Freaking hell, that's 42 years old, kids. And it went for a genuine cardboard cutout vintage. It went for a whopping, how much do you reckon it went for? It went for a whopping $214 there, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah, well, apparently you're never going to find a good one because Kiss have a reputation of never keeping any of their boxes mint. But when you look for this kind of thing, I think it's one of those things where when you get a box like this, it actually is really great artwork on the cover. A lot of the boxes you see kind of have all the cereal stuff and then a little promo, but this it looks like the Vitabrits is on the bottom of the box and the Kiss is the whole box. So that's probably quite an interesting one for collectors.
Yeah, Colin, you actually get some few bucks back, dude. So well done, sir. Yeah, but that's still a lot of money, though, isn't it? When you think about it, just an empty box, and it has been written on. So, but yes, if you're a Kiss collector, especially if you're overseas, if they're like in America and they didn't see or know about Vitabrits, it could do quite well selling over there, which is particularly cool. All right, here we go. Oh my God, it's a what the hell you would call this, dude?
Well, now we're getting into the rare stuff. This is a Crater Critter. Now, these were one of those traditional toys. They were around for a while. They were in cereal, just your regular cornflakes and Cocoa Pops. And there was a whole series of these Crater Critters, and they were friendly aliens that lived on the moon. And you could get them and collect them. And obviously, a lot of people still try to collect them now.
Yes, obviously, if they lived on the moon, you don't want to have the watch the movie Trip to the Moon from 1902 because they fly to the moon, find the aliens up there, and they kill them. So how good is that? That was the first sci-fi movie ever made, and did that set the tone for the future of humanity? Find aliens and kill them. They bring one back to stick in the zoo. All right, so what do you reckon this thing went for? So Angie's gone for $62. Look at it, just a piece of orange plastic. Gavin said 36. Christie's gone for 13. Colin's 465. Holy guacamole. Phil's at 250. Michael has gone for 750. He loved the what is it? The Crater Critters. Critters who live in craters. Guy has said 70. Adzi has said 8. Joshua's at 25. Kelvin's also at 25. Bob has said 35 sugar snacks. William has said 75. Hang on. Oh, Greg has said, no, these are not $2. I'll grab all for myself. $500. Oh, there you go. All right. So very, very cool. All right. Near mint. Make of that what you will. Maybe you lost a leg somewhere in his travels. Orange Kingly Critter with crown. Vintage Crater. Oh, my God. How do you say that in a hurry? So what do you reckon it went for? It's just a piece of orange crap. Nobody in the world would know what the hell this is unless you'd seen the old Crater Critters. So how much do you reckon it went for? There were 13 bids. Oh my God, they're fighting over this dude. So how much did he go for? He went for a whopping $1,225. What's the deal?
Well, firstly, it's in a rare color. It's really hard to get the red Crater Critters. I don't think they were released in Australia. I think from memory they were a Turkish issue of them. And secondly, Kingly came with a crown that comes off. Do you know how impossible it is to get that with the crown on? I have seen the crown, so that little black thing on the top, go for $500 just by itself. Yeah. This one is still sealed in its original little baggie. So where you were always saying keeps things mint on the card, it paid off for this person because that is a lot of money for a Crater Critter.
Well, they did say it was used, so make of that what you will. Yeah, there's some good responses to this, and I totally agree. So imagine that imagine showing this to your other half and say, "Hey, honey, I spent $1,225 on this. You could actually get airline flights to Bali for that, have holidays, and then come back and still have change. How crazy is that?" Yes. Michael said, "Yes, it has the 4 points on the crown, as you just said." You got what?
Yeah, Dags, the flight, the holiday in Bali will be a memory when that Crater Critter will still be sitting on your shelf.
Yeah, but what good memories, eh? There you go. How about that? $1,225. Nobody was even remotely close, except for, as I mentioned earlier, Michael, and he's still got to cough up an extra like 500 and something bucks. So is that going to be the case with these guys? What do you reckon, Mr. Aaron?
Well, we've just seen how much Kingly goes for, so surely a full set of 9 mint condition ones is going to go for more, isn't it? Crater Critter cereal toys, 9 mint condition. You can see there you've got a purple Kingly standing proud at the front with his crown, and then you've got all the other ones there that are complete too. So obviously this is going to go for the most of the night, wouldn't you think, Dags?
I don't know. I mean, based on the numbers, what we've seen so far is like, what's the deal? Our audience is sitting there stewing over thinking, well, if the other one was 1,200, multiply that by what the 10 of them happen to be, 120 grand. What could possibly go wrong? Except for Angie, he said $6.20. So clearly he's not very optimistic about it as well. I like that. Yeah, you can fly to the moon and get one for that price. I absolutely love it. All right, so what do you reckon? 1,200 and whatever it went for the last item. What do you reckon this is going to go for? Chrissy's already given up. She said 9 cents, so she doesn't really know. Phil's gone for 2,000. Guy's gone for 25 cents. Michael, who got the last item, even though he's $500 short, is 980. Kelvin has said, yep, $2,000 all the way. And Bob has gone for 2,000 as well. Joshua, good to see Joshua joining us at 500. Gavin, $1 trillion. How do you do that with a Dr. Evil sort of smile? Adzi has said 250. Colin has said 655. What do you reckon? Is it going to go for tens of thousands of bucks, or are they just going to be going out for next to nothing? So what does everybody think? All right, so Greg has said maybe 200. Okay, very, very cool. William had 1,500. I don't know if I had William earlier, so there you go. All right, so how much do you reckon they went for? Crater Critters, cereal toys, 9 of them. I don't know why I said 10, but there's 9 in mint condition. Absolutely fantastic. Did they go for bargain basement, or would they go absolutely expensive? Could you buy a house for the price of these guys? They went for a whopping $5,000 effing dollars. Oh, Jesus.
No, they weren't reproductions. They were originals. And again, these are the kind of things that if you shuffle around in your garage or something, if you had these growing up, you might find one of them around still. Admittedly, these are in rare mint condition, but that is a lot of money for cereal toys, isn't it?
That is absolutely ridiculous. So I said for the last one, you could fly to Bali for a holiday for $5,000. You could actually fly to Europe and bloody America and whatever. That is insane. $5,000.
I know. $5,000, you can fill your tank and drive to Geelong for that.
These are unbelievable. And nobody was even clear. Isn't that insane? I mean, once again, imagine coming home to your other half and saying, hey, honey, I spent $5,000 on these. So, and I agree. Where can you find the people who pay these prices? Yeah, it's just insane. You would just want to marry them, don't you? So, Colin, no way. Yes, way. And the worst part is some people say, I used to have some of these characters and I chucked them out when I was a kid. So, people are bonkers. It's just insane, isn't it? So, $5,000. It's.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine the episode of Antiques Roadshow where you rock up with these and all the experts look down their nose and say these are a load of crap and they're worth $5,000?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And Bob says, they had a different name in Australia and the UK. So there you go. All right, so last one for the night. We're just slightly behind schedule. Oh, here we go. Bit of Star Wars Wheaties, mate. King Willie Wheatie. He would have been a good Star Wars character. Go for it.
I asked you something about these. Do you notice something about the Star Wars logo there?
With the W being that way.
Yeah, what does that mean?
You did tell me once before. First version of it that came out, I think.
It's the very, very first version. So this is a very, very early set of Australian cereal. It's the Wheaties cards, and these are some of the hardest cards to get. So when you're thinking about what you want to put down for this could be up there with the Crater Critters. Then again, it might be the $2 item for the night. Who knows?
It's going to strain a few brains of people who are watching this. So there you go. And one of the rare occasions to see good old Tarkin appear in a picture too. He usually got omitted most of the time. All right. So what does everybody reckon these are going for? Some vintage Star Wars Wheaties cereal box panel and poster and all that, all Australian. You would think in the American market this would go for a fortune. Angie's gone for $6,200. Guys ramped it up to 10, 12 grand. Michael, by contrast, has said $75. Remember, these things are now 40-something years old now. Colin said $2,500. Gavin's at $732. Phil's gone for $5,000. Kevin's gone $7,000. Christy, I can see that one coming a mile away, $1,138. Well done. Joshua's gone for $1,000. Williams at $4,500. Bob has gone for $1,200. Jawas was it Jawas 3 that we saw earlier. Adzi has just gone for $100. There you go. So vintage. So this would have been 1970, right on the 77 mark, maybe even 76. Absolutely fantastic. Remember, a lot of Australian stuff does very well when sold to Americans. They go completely apeshit for this sort of stuff. Wheaties cereal box back panel and poster Australian. Oh my God, how exciting is that? So how much do you reckon this would have gone for? Surely it went for an absolute fortune. Now, we've seen an item that you could sell get a trip to Bali. The last item you can get yourself and you can go to a trip to America and in Europe. Maybe this one you can go to the moon for. So how much did it go for, Mr. Aaron? He went for a whopping $500. What a bargain. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think that's probably about what I would have expected it to go for. These are incredibly hard to find. You find the panels, you never find a full box of these. Even the cards are hard to get. So this probably was something that it is interesting. It's one of the few Star Wars items I've never had, so it is quite a rare piece in Australia. But it is one of those things I thought you could probably flip for more in America.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, Gavin, I think you got it, dude. You got a couple $100 back too as well. Chrissy said disappointing. It is, but it isn't, because ultimately you look at what it is. Now, having said that, the previous items were really, really just like toys from cereal boxes. They went for a fortune. But I agree with Aaron. In America, these Steve Sansweet and people like that would go nuts over this stuff like this. But by the same token, it's just printed cardboard, so it's really not that exciting. So yeah, Philip, way off. You're not the only one, dude. So don't stress. And yes, very, very cool. So just goes to show you can't predict these things, can you, there, Mr. Aaron?
The other thing with our show, because we're based in Australia, we use prices and auctions that are within Australia unless we have a special episode. So it does show you, if you are local, you can pick up a bargain. I do think it's funny. The Gremlins one went for a couple of hundred and everyone was going, oh, that's too much. And then the Star Wars one goes for 500 and everyone's, oh, that's disappointing.
It just goes to show, eh? So there you go. Very, very cool. All right, so just people out there, don't forget, if you haven't done so already, go press on the button to check out our socials if you want to be a part of everything that's going on around the place, and our Twitters and bloody Instagrams and all that sort of stuff. Keep on top. Don't forget, we do have other shows Monday night and Tuesday night, and there may be others to come. Yeah. So you never know, kids. So be sure, it's the way to stay on top with what's happening. Isn't that right, Mr. Aaron?
It is, and they're all the products of depraved minds.
Oh, yes, indeedy, doody, doody. So there you go. As human skins and bloody smelly turds and cats' asses are your thing, you never know what's going to come up. Oh, love it, eh? Anybody watching this show for the first time, you're thinking, what is wrong with these guys? All right, now it's time for our feature presentation. Now, like this show, we've almost become a cereal unto ourselves, but we're talking about the other cereal that you can eat. And so what are we talking about tonight, Mr. Aaron? We're talking about... So, this is a bit hard to read, but cereal boxes and premiums, is that right?
Yeah. So it's about collecting cereal boxes and premiums. And whereas I thought this would be a nice, interesting topic we'd breeze through, this is going to be a multi-part show that we'll do over the rest of the year, because there is so much of this stuff out there. So today we're narrowing it down a bit, looking at the origins of cereal boxes and premiums, and then some of the more popular franchises as well. So...
I'm just going to cut you off. Chrissy said she'd be happy to see us every night. Oh, entertaining us all. Oh my God, I think too much. You can never have too much of us, that's for sure. So even I think we would just drown ourselves out over a period of the week. So sorry there, dude. Yes, you're talking about the cereal boxes and premiums. Is that right?
Yeah. So I've collected cereal boxes and premiums for different series. Over my shoulder, you can see I've got the Weet-Bix Flash Gordon box, and I'm sure you've got some Batman ones from the Batman '89 movies as well. But they have a much longer history than that, and we're going to look at some of the history, what was the first popular ones, and how we got to where we are today, where they were basically, they don't have them anymore.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because it's something that's so common that, you go to the supermarket, oh, they've released a cornflakes with a action figure or something, or like a movie thing on the front, and it comes and it goes, and you don't think anything of it. And it's only when you sit and really analyze and you go, hang on, where did these things come from? Where did they end up? And did anybody make a point of going, oh, I've got to keep that? And of course, most people don't keep the physical cereal that's inside it, unless you're me. It's just the packaging by itself. But these things come and go over all this long period of time. And it's only when someone says, oh, I collected this from 30-something years ago, you go, holy shit, I remember when they first came out, and I've just forgotten all about it. So it takes, I think, someone with their brain tuned in a certain way, and I mean this in a positive sense, to say, oh, yes, I'm going to hang on to this, put it away, and you never know what it's going to be like in the future. But, of course, it all had to start somewhere, didn't it, Mr. Aaron? And here we go.
It did. Now, it surprised me. Maybe it shouldn't have, but the cereal, they were originally cereal premium prizes. And they were giveaways by companies to, of course, entice you to buy their product. And the first ones were Kellogg's. And the very first one was for cornflakes. And it was the funny Jungle Land pop-up motion book. And you had to buy 2 packets of Kellogg's cornflakes, and there would be people doing an in-store promotion. And if you bought 2 packets, they would give you this book for free. So originally, cereal premium prizes didn't come packed in with them. There was actually people in the stores encouraging you to buy the product, and when you bought the product, they would give you the things for free. Now, interestingly, this was in 1912, and it was so popular, they were still giving away versions of this book in 1936. So it wasn't like they didn't sell out of them. They kept reprinting it, and there's lots of different versions. It was incredibly popular. The next one they did which was also popular and also goes for a fortune now. Down the bottom, you can see on material, they printed out rag dolls, and you could get them, cut them out, sew them, and stuff them yourself. And you can see a set of these rag dolls is going on eBay at the moment for, I think, 700 US for a set of them there. So they aren't cheap things to get. They were called serial premium prizes, and they got cut down originally. Now, the first things that were actually packed in the packets, as far as people know, and there is a bit of argument over this, but this is what people tend to believe, were these military insignia. And these were packed in packets in 1943 in America. And they were World War II squadron insignias, and you had to collect, I think there was 36 different ones. So the one thing that'll come up again and again when we talk about this, cereal companies are bastards. If you can get 5 or 6 in a set, you have a reasonable time to collect it, eat it and collect it before the promotion goes. If you've got to get 36 of something and it's around for a couple of months and you're getting a random one so you don't know what you're going to get, you have zero chance of getting a set unless you're doing some major trading and swapping around. And back then, before the internet, it'd be very hard to get a 36 set of
well, the key thing is whether they said there's 36 to collect, or whether they just said if you get 5 or 6 of them, over the period of the promotion, good for you, yay team. You do wonder how many people back then had the mindset to say, oh no, I wonder if I can trade to get the whole lot. I reckon that would have been very, very few people, because I don't know if the mindset of collecting the whole lot would have been the go at the time. And I agree with you. If it was mainly children or young people eating the cereals, they wouldn't have been thinking, I don't think anyway, about saying, oh, I've got 7, I need the other 25. So it would have been very interesting to see how that all worked. And it is interesting how you say when they chuck these things in the bag, and that's what Ange said here. I wonder how many people swallowed them. It was a common thing to open the pack and stick the hand in, fishing around for it, because it was always in with the food, not on the outside of the bag, in the food. And you go, there you go, I've got it.
Everyone did the same thing. We want a new packet. Open it, in goes the hand, rustle around, you get it, and that's it.
Michael's made a point in saying you traded at school. That's assuming everybody else was eating the same cereal, but that's a good point. Yeah, at school we got it. That's okay. But I'm intrigued to say if somebody said, "Oh, I just want like the bombers," right? So they made X amount of bombers, like airplane bombers. But I'd be curious to see how many people thought, especially if they were kids, saying, "No, I'm going to try and get the whole lot." I don't think anybody would have been thinking that at the time. It would have been a pretty rare occurrence, in my opinion, anyway. So,
well, doing research for this show, there's still forums, military forums, where people are still trying to swap and get a full set, and they talk about not being able to get them at the time.
Yeah, and by today's standards, absolutely, because the collector mentality's kicked in over all these decades. But back then, I don't know. So anyway, we move on.
Yep, so it probably isn't a big surprise, but the first, I guess what you would call licensed or themed serial tie-ins that I guess are more aiming towards the pop culture collectibles that we look at were for cowboys. And cowboys were one of those things that were very, very popular in America. There was a lot of cowboy and Western TV shows and movies. A lot of the big stars were cowboys. And it was also kind of viewed as a healthy lifestyle. So it was one of those things that would tie in very well with, something that's good for you for breakfast. There were a lot of different promotions for cowboys over the years, and there still probably are Western themed things coming out, but a lot of them involved cutting out the packets. So you would buy a packet, and on the back of the packet there would be an Indian wigwam and an Indian village, and there might be some cowboys on horses, and there might be different houses for a town. And the good thing about this, I think, is you could see on the back of the box which one you were getting. So it wasn't a random thing that was packed inside. It was actually something that you could see and collect all the different ones you wanted. Now, there are other things. They put cards inside cereal boxes, and I do remember growing up getting different cards out of the boxes. And you could never get a set because we just didn't eat cereal fast enough.
It's also worth noting too that from a production standpoint, to produce this stuff is a lot harder than normal. So if you just have one cereal box, you get on the printers and you just print out 10 billion of the damn things, off they go. But if you've got variations of the boxes, so you got 6,000 at this backing, that 1,000 with that backing, 6,000 with that backing, somebody has to change all the printing in the printing presses to do all that. That's a lot of work behind the scenes to make it happen, as well as putting, if you're going to put cards or whatever inside the box itself. So someone physically has to do that. So it's not an automated process. So that's probably why in these early days it wasn't that common to see these things everywhere. And of course, it was clearly aimed at kids because kids, cereals, were a kids' meal. So
Yeah.
for a lot of companies, they probably thought it's a great idea, but the logistics of making it happen is just so complicated. The return on investment isn't there because ultimately, if you're going to eat the cereal, who gives a shit about what's on the back anyway? So you do wonder, is this going to make a kid shift from one cereal brand to another one just so they can specifically get the cowboy and Indian thing on the back? So maybe that was the mindset at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where it obviously worked or they wouldn't have kept doing it.
Yes, I love it. Yes, all the cowboys smoking, drinking, and frying foods healthy. Yeah, no one even thought about that stuff back in the day. So yes, very, very groovy.
I'll tell you what, they didn't have any Brokeback Mountain Cheerio packs, did they?
Jesus, there's an action figure. No, move on.
So here's some of the other older different packaging for Westerns. And one of the ones I thought was very cool here was you got to build up with Cheerios the entire Lone Ranger's village. And you can see down the bottom there, I found that on an old auction site. The bottom right-hand side there is every single building. So if you got all the different packs, you could basically build up an entire town. And this was fantastic because then they gave you all the little plastic figures and horses and stuff to also use in the town. So this was a multi-year promotion, which got, I guess, brand loyalty from people who wanted to be along for the ride, get the entire town, then get all the figures that go in the town and keep building it bigger and bigger. And that's one of those things that you don't see so much now. I guess the closest thing is when Coles or whatever was releasing the fake Lego to build the different buildings and stuff from Coles.
You are right. Putting things physically in the boxes, I think, there's a health hazard and all the sort of rubbish that goes on now. As I said a moment ago, imagine you got the kid who says, "Oh, I eat Vitabrits," and then they see these sugar pops with all this, all the town and the figures and whatever. They'd be going, "No, I don't want Vitabrits anymore. Buy me 30 packs of this." And that, from a marketing perspective, regardless of how logistically difficult it is to produce, is ingenious. And then suddenly you get massive market share. And other companies would have twigged on this, thinking, "Look how these guys are doing. Oh, we've got to do something similar." And of course, that's where it all starts to change. And a good example of that, of course, is with the old Cheerios and the Lone Ranger.
It is absolutely fantastic. And I think some of it is funny. The first thing there is you could send off for a life-size Lone Ranger and Tonto. Now, there can't be many of those that still exist, but someone has one there with their cereal display. But that was a real premium where you ate enough and you send the tops of the cereal in and you would get with your however much for postage a life-size Lone Ranger. The other thing that I think is really cool, and as a kid I would have absolutely hated, you see the Cheerios there that come with a free gun. It looks like you get a real gun with it, but really it's just on the back you get a cutout gun, because on the front it says a real firing gun, and it is a firing gun when you supply your own elastic band to make it shoot and things like that. So it is selling the dream, and when you get it home you get like a cardboard cutout. But I guess it worked because they did that with a lot of promotions, and it is obviously cheap because if you're printing the box, it doesn't cost you any more to print something on the back of the box, which is an incentive for kids to get it.
Unless you live in Southern America, and they actually do give you a real gun. So there you go. Bob said, really don't understand why they don't do these things now. It'd be all legalities more than anything else. All it takes is for one kid to say, I was eating my cereal. I didn't know there was a toy in there. I've swallowed it, like was mentioned earlier. Bang, lawsuits everywhere. So it's the fun police have said, no, you can't do that anymore. That would be the reason why. And it's actually easier for them to say, as you said earlier, at the checkout, you want the toy, yes or no. And it's just not the same. It's not the experience that we had, but you can understand why they did it because, some of these things are pretty tiny. So, and of course, they could get damaged in the cereal packets as well. And not everybody would want them. So imagine if you're just a normal dude, go, mate, I just want to eat some bloody Cheerios. I'm freaking Lone Ranger shit coming out. Yes, I love it. DIY guns, fantastic. But that would have been the coolest thing ever. You couldn't get through the cereal fast enough, so you get the scissors out and cut at the back and stick it together. Mate, I'm ready to party. So, yes, very, very cool.
Now, we're sort of moving more towards the popular culture stuff here, because the other thing that was a big deal in America, where you had the cowboys and the westerns in, I guess, the 40s and 50s, at the end of the 50s and through the 60s, the space race happened. And all the kids were super excited about astronauts and rockets. And the other thing that happened at the time, there were already a lot of radio shows on about cowboys and some sci-fi. This really took off. So there was a lot of tie-ins with what was going on in the radio. So the radio might mention special code rings or wristwatch radios and things like that. And then they'd team up and have Cornflakes brought you Captain Video, and then Cornflakes would put a tie in and you could go and get them. And so this was very popular as well. And cowboys are very collectible, but a lot of the space age stuff is incredibly collectible too. And this is where the Crater Critters originally came from, an offshoot of the space collectibles. And you can see there at the top, there is a whole bunch of different collectibles, and they were all food premiums to do with the space race. And you can see there's Apollo capsules and lunar landers and space mission patches and spacemen, of course. So this was a big thing. And if you look at the Cornflakes packs, they're actually quite boring. So you can probably understand why suddenly when they've got science fiction rockets and spacemen on, kids are going to go, hooly dooly, I want this brand.
Yeah, I'm looking at this and I was thinking, as a kid, it says up here, if you can read it, offers you a chance to be a space cadet. I would have lost my load over that. And in fact, the live action series Space Patrol, which was made in the 50s, was never recorded, it was just all live, was actually sponsored by Instant Ralston, right, which is down here, right? So they actually had the characters in the show promoting Ralston because of the whole space thing. And you are right, you can join up and you get the ring and the glasses and this and that and all this sort of stuff. And as a kid, in the 50s, especially before they landed on the moon, you'd be tripping out over this. And it would actually encourage you to eat a lot more cereal, whether it be bad for you or good for you, because you wanted to be a part of all this. It was like at Captain Galaxy and Future Boy. And Michael did make a point of saying about what happened in the US. And a kid ate the cereal toy still sealed in the plastic packet. Yeah, and unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. And that changes everything. But yeah, so with the space stuff, that's what would have, people say, oh, I'm past the Cowboys and Indians. I'm a bit older now. I'm a teenager. Oh, yeah. I want to be a space cadet. Dude, mate, give me the cereal and we're good to go. So
yeah. I don't want a 6-shooter anymore, but I'll take one of those futuristic ray guns.
Mate, it's a Dakota ring. Some of those ads were fantastic. See through your 3D glasses and all. It was all new. And it's funny, by today's standards, you go, oh, yeah, it's a bit wanky. It's, some cheap rubbish from overseas. But yeah, back then, it was like just the thought of having it. It's like, mate, give me some more of the cereal. I'm good to go. So absolutely fantastic. And as you mentioned, eventually they got around to producing physical toys, chucking them in the bags. And as we said, you used to fish around the bag. Mate, the cereal going everywhere. I don't give a shit about the food. Just give me the toy. And, of course, that was the deal with the spacemen. Yeah.
Yeah. So eventually we got to this point where they were releasing plastic spacemen. And these were, these are kind of synonymous with cereal toys. When you think of cereal toys, the first ones that people think of are the plastic spacemen. And as you could see, you could get all the different spacemen with their different space equipment. And then you could get lunar landers, moon bases, satellites, the rockets, the towers, the fuel cells and things like that. And these were incredibly popular, again, to the point where they'd be so popular, they'd do this range of them and then they'd come back again due to popular demand. And often you'd get sort of other companies see that, like Kellogg's is doing this, so you'd get, Nabisco who do something very similar. So kids would be spoilt for choice on what they wanted to get. And again, it is a genius because it's almost a bit addictive, because I do remember as a kid seeing all the stuff on the back of the box and going, I want this one, I want this one, I want this one. Oh, damn, I got Princess Leia or something like that when you wanted some of the other things. So it is one of the things that appeals to the collector in people, that you see all of them on this amazing piece of artwork on the back of the box. And then you get one single little one and you go, no, I've got to get all of them. I want it to be as cool as what it looks like.
And it's worth noting, too, that at this point, the word astronaut didn't exist yet. So it's spacemen, right? Yes. No one uses that term anymore. And obviously, there's a lot of good reasons for it. But like this one, free inside, man in space patches. So, back then it was a male-dominated thing. But, the word astronaut hadn't appeared yet. But, you'd go absolutely troppo trying to find all these things. So, it was the way to go. And, of course, it would have been a huge success story for Kellogg's. And it's probably why they kept it up for such a long period of time. So, yeah. Oh, here we go.
And look at this. This is where we start getting into the popular culture full on. Look at all the different coloured space crater critters you could get. And what's interesting about this, and we are going to go into Star Trek, you can see one of the crater critter boxes there also was a Star Trek promotion. So they were so popular. And I guess it would be good when the company came up with something they didn't have to license. It was their own thing. But they were so popular, they'd bring them back every couple of years in different colours. But they do a Star Trek box and then they give you Crater Critters. Now, as a Star Trek fan, I'd probably be a bit disappointed about that because I'd want Mr. Spock or something else. But as we're going to see, there was a lot of Star Trek tie-ins with cereal.
So you're saying you prefer the Star Trek characters, but as we've seen just in the eBay section, these dudes are worth a shitload more than the Star Trek guys. I mean, you look at these things down over here now, and you go, "Hang on, we just saw some of those things sell for $5,000." It's like, crikey, Mikey. So
I tell you what, if little Johnny ate like Kingsley's crown, you'd be going through the store samples trying to find it, wouldn't you?
You'd be picking little Johnny up and smacking him in the ass and spit that at you, little bastards.
So here we go. This is where we started getting into the licensed stuff. And I really love this because it's kind of that 60s aesthetic where they've got very similar artists and they do some great promotion. Now, we're looking first at some of the Jerry Anderson tie-ins, and we've got the Sugar Smacks, which were a very popular cereal because basically they were 100% sugar sort of molded together with more sugar. So give the kids a lot of energy in the morning.
Yep.
I was surprised how many tie-ins there were with Jerry Anderson stuff. But from the Jerry Anderson shows we've seen, he was a very shrewd marketer. And I could imagine him approaching and saying, oh, we'll help advertise. And there are adverts where you have Joe 90 eating Sugar Smacks that exist. So they did tie in with the studios. And you can see with the Joe 90 one, I think what Michael was saying earlier, he had some of the snap together spaceships. They advertised them sort of as a Joe 90 tie-in, but they were using old spaceships that were snapped together toys from other night. There we go. So Michael knows his stuff. He's an expert in this field and collects a lot of the Jerry Anderson stuff. I imagine getting this stuff now is incredibly hard. I collect the Doctor Who stuff from the era, and it just never, ever turns up. The badges and stuff do, but a lot of these things were made to be collectible, but were also very breakable and very losable. And unless you were a kid that actually kept stuff aside and looked after it, a lot of this stuff would probably be put together and gone or destroyed or thrown out within 6 months. And again, with the actual packaging, this stuff at the time, no one collected this stuff. It wasn't something that was considered collectible. So most of it was destroyed. And when it does turn up, it's generally not people who kept it from the time. They used it as a box to steal something else, or they've cut it and used it in the bottom of drawers as insulation or something like that.
Well, by default, I mean, cereal boxes are disposable items. I mean, like imagine saying to you've eaten the cereal or finished it, and you've said to your parents, your mother, father, whatever, so, can I keep the box? They'd be going, why? It's just rubbish. It's cardboard. It's shit. And the mentality just wouldn't have occurred at that point. So that's the reason why it would take, as I said earlier, a very special person to say, no, there's something in this that's going to last into the distant future, and it could be very, very cool. I like the idea, as you said, you give the kids a sugary breakfast. And as Ange said here, where are we? The teachers at the school would have loved that. They're all hyper, and they'd be just chowing down on this stuff. And of course, you can't physically go to the supermarket and buy 58 boxes of cereal. Hopefully, you get different toys in each one. It would have been a brain strain for a lot of kids. As you said, you open a pack, you pull in, and go, oh, I should have already got this one. How am I going to swap it with something else? So,
can you imagine in the 70s and 80s where it was sugar, and instead of real juices, Cotty's cordial instead? And,
exactly right.
To climb the wall. I have a
Michael. Captain Scarlet. So no, well done to you, dude. So very, very cool. And of course, if you're going to go the Captain Scarlet route, you've got to go down the Thunderbirds route.
Yep. So Thunderbirds as well, we've looked at, was one of Jerry Anderson's most successful shows, and of course with that they're going to do the tie-ins, and I think this is one of the nicest tie-ins. There's a few different things there. You can get the cast. And they released them in 4 different colors, and all of them came in each of the different colors. So if you want to get all of them, that's a lot of cereal. But it would have been nice to sort of be able to get the cast. I do like in the ad for that, it looks like they're all colored figures and painted nicely, but when you get them, they're just one solid color. But I think one of the nicest tie-ins was probably getting the set of the Thunderbirds vehicles. Now, they are hard to get. They are really lovely little premiums, and they work really well because we talked about how each of the vehicles is synonymous with a different color, and by having just the one color cereal promo, they don't look too dodgy. They still are very recognizable and iconic for the ships they are, and they are highly sought after by collectors today. Now, on the other side of that, Figures are fairly easy to get. Yeah, the vehicles are difficult. So yeah, the vehicles are the desirable things. What is very hard to get though, they did do a promotion where you cut out the figures from the back to make your own, Thunderbirds figures, and there's a Parker there in the middle that you could do. These are apparently very, very hard to find as well, because I guess the cardboard stuff from that era, if the kids cut it up and used it, they'd probably keep it for a couple of months and then it's destroyed. And if they didn't use it and there was no interest, it probably just got thrown out. So these are the type of things that are very, very desirable for collectors.
I like with the ships, at least they kept the color scheme, like Thunderbird 4 being yellow and Thunderbird 2 being green and all that sort of thing. Oh, okay, they're at least consistent in that regard. So there was obviously a bit of thought put into it, which is cool. Obviously, Thunderbird 5 wasn't going to sell, so they didn't even bother with that. So, yeah, very, very cool. Some of them have turned up as Spanish knockoffs. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once people twig on the fact, there's value in these things, like we saw really with the Crater Critters, right? They're selling for thousands of dollars. Someone somewhere is going to be trying to make 3D prints of those and pass them off as the real thing. And that's where the whole counterfeit thing comes into it. Yeah.
You've brought it up before. If suddenly a whole bunch of them appear in Argentina, don't buy them.
Yeah. And of course, production would be next to nothing. And like, unless you've seen and physically held the original one, you'd be able to pass off a knockoff pretty easily. So yeah, buyer beware, that's for sure. Now, to be fair, good old Docky Who obviously had to stick its nose into the cereal game, and they did with a fair bit of it. And yes, you can get yourself some sugar smacks with the old third Doctor. So
yes, so while Thunderbirds was popular with the sugar smacks, Doctor Who did a range as well. They released a couple of different premiums. It's interesting, they did a range of badges which you can understand fit in with Doctor Who. They've got the set of badges. The hardest one to get is actually the unit badge. But they did different promos, and one of them was vintage cars, and it wasn't cutout cars, it was just little vintage car models, maybe because the third Doctor drove a vintage car. And then they also had cutout jungle scenes as another one of the Doctor Who promos. So I feel a little bit ripped off as a fan that they weren't more tied into Doctor Who. Now, the really interesting one there is the Bessie cutout, which is the Doctor's car, which no one is quite sure if they originally did or is a modern reproduction that someone's done and passed it off as an original. It's possible they did it, or it's possible it's a reproduction. But about 15 years ago, one of them turned up on the back of a box cut off, and it's presumed to be original, but no one remembers it coming out, and no one's quite sure if it's real or not. So that's probably one of the more interesting things about the Doctor Who line.
Yeah, if I was going to take a stab, but just looking at that scan, it looks unbelievably brand new. So, so part of me would think that it's a bit of a knockoff. What I find funny is his reaction up here. It's like that's what you call having the finger in the electrical socket, isn't it?
Yeah, I did. I always thought as a fan that the artwork for the Thunderbird stuff was great, and the Doctor Who stuff wasn't up to the same standard.
Yeah, because he's giving away free badges, and as we all know, we don't need no stinking badges.
Now, we're going back a couple of years. The first Doctor Who promotion was through another healthy-sounding cereal, Sugar Puffs. And this one is so rare, there is not a known example of the box. So if you've got one, you're probably sitting on a fortune. Interestingly enough, this is one of the earliest Doctor Who examples, maybe the only one of product tie-in. You can see there's a couple of pictures from the movie there on the left and on the right at the bottom, and you can see they've actually put Sugar Puff advertising. So in the middle of the Dalek invasion of Earth, 2150 AD, it's good to know that Sugar Puffs are still around and selling to the British public under the thumb of the Daleks. What is interesting there is a couple of the store displays. Now, you could win a Dalek in the Sugar Puff promotion. When we go through this, there are two premiums that I think are the best ever. One of them is this one, where they gave away 3 real Daleks to Doctor Who fans. You had to fill in a quiz. Now, getting a real Dalek, you can see at the top left there, that's the story in the local paper of one of the lads that actually got a real Dalek from the Sugar Puffs. That would be about the best serial premium ever. I can't think of many that top that, but we will discuss one in the Star Trek a little bit later. And so you've got the pictures of the premium standee, which was the Dalek, but there are no known examples of the actual box. So that is a really rare box and a really rare premium. And Doctor Who was popular at this time, so you would have thought someone would have put one away.
Yeah, imagine that you buy a box of cereal, you enter the competition, and you end up winning a real Dalek as seen in the film. It's like, oh, mate, how trippy would that be? So, sugar puff me up, boys. Yeah, it's very, very cool.
Well, coming forward again to the 70s, these are some of my more favourite promos from Doctor Who serials. This is Weetabix. Weetabix really championed science fiction and a lot of comic book things during the 70s and 80s. And this is the first of their Tom Baker Doctor Who promotions. Basically, you could collect a set of all those figures you can see in the middle there, which were the Doctor and his companions and monsters. And then on the back of the boxes, you had these amazing paintings of alien vistas, and you could display your Doctor Who figure cards in front of the appropriate background. Also, they did do a TARDIS that you could build yourself. That's the bottom left there. And it was, again, the back of the box. You cut it out. And then you've got the TARDIS, the monsters, and all the different backgrounds to display them on. That is absolutely amazing.
Even as a kid, when you were looking at this, you just would have been going off your nut in the supermarket. Mom, can I have them all? No, you can only have one. Oh, Jesus Christ. How much cereal do you need in the house? Unbelievable. So, yeah, that looks very, very cool, got to say.
Yeah. And the first promotion was so successful, they did an even better one the next year. And there's some actual I guess, industry promotion on the top left there, saying how powerful it was and quoting how the sales of the cereal went up. So when we're talking about, did it actually work? Yeah, it actually, the gruel of Gallifrey. So I can imagine with this stuff, I would have been eating 2 breakfasts every morning to try and get through the Weetabix.
It worked for you. You've turned into the nerd you are today.
Look at what it's done to me. But again, this has fantastic art. It's very evocative of the time. It's that very colourful. It would stand out amazingly well. And I could imagine seeing this, the bright yellow boxes, and then turning to the backs, and you have the amazing artwork on the back. And that's absolutely right. This is so popular that you can buy this artwork still, because the son of the artist has taken up a license and prints it out, so you can get posters. You can even get pillowcases and pillows with it on. So that's how popular it still is. These are all very, very hard to get. They do turn up a little more regularly. Intact box, you're looking between probably 100 to 300 pounds. So you're looking $500 a box for this stuff.
Chrissy's got you down pat, dude. You did the Hobbit diet for breakfast, dude. Breakfast and then second breakfast.
Second breakfast and then first lunch and then second lunch and then main lunch.
I mean, the problem with Aaron had that he couldn't get a bowl physically big, and you needed a wok, dude, to stick the cereal in and just chat out from that. Yeah, look, these things are fantastic, aren't they? And they do look absolutely awesome. And it's kind of thing, until you'd seen like photographs like now, or years later, you go, I didn't realize they produced that much of it, and the different varieties and the styles. And of course, it depended on where you lived. So if you're like in England, they probably didn't release this sort of stuff here, so you got absolutely no idea this stuff even existed. So it was all about being in the right place, in the right time, in the right country. And of course, England would have been the center point of a lot of that Docky Who stuff, which is absolutely spectacular and really, really cool. And of course, now people are trying to track it all down for their collections.
Well, I never did it, but I think you said you had a friend that had an amazing idea, who said every cereal that comes out here, or you send over to America and you send everything back. So was that something like that you said?
Yeah, it was. I was going to bring it up when we get around to, not in this episode, but a future episode talking about Star Wars, because he focused specifically on Star Wars. But yeah, there's a whole story about how he got his collection. So if you're in England, you'd be going, oh my God, all this Docky Who stuff, it's absolutely spectacular from a cereal perspective. If you're in the US, though, you probably would take it in by a bit of the old Star Treks, mate.
So we're moving away from Doctor Who. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief. We're looking at the Star Trek stuff, and the other premium that I think is maybe one of the best things you could have won if you were a fan, win an extra walk-in role on Star Trek. And if you look at the top second one from the top right, it has you in the picture, because you could win this special deal where you get a week in Hollywood, full access to the Star Trek sets, personal tours by the cast and crew, and then it all culminates in you having a walk-in role. Now, I don't know if that actually happened. Probably someone who's a Star Trek fan watching can say, yeah, it was in this episode. But how cool would that be, Dags?
Yeah, so what they've done the old, we've filmed the dude, stick him in there because he looks like a complete tool. And they go, sorry, kid, we've ended up on the cutting room floor, got deleted scene. Yeah, too bad. One day you'll see it on a DVD.
Well, the crazy one, they did something similar for the He-Man movie. It was through the British comic book. You could have a stand-in role, and then the guy that went was the little kid, and they turned him into a pig boy. So you couldn't even tell it was him. It was this little pig character.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, signing me up. And that's exactly what would have happened, Colin. There would have been a million billion people who would have said, yep. And of course you would. All you got to do is just buy a box of cereal and then send the thing in. You would do it. And I mean, that's the ingenious concept. You'd like to think that they followed through with it and made it happen. I mean, logistically, if the person, like it's American only, so they're filming in California and somebody wins over in Florida and they're going to fly them over. It's a bit of an expense from the cereals point of view, but they would have sold a lot of extra packets for that reason. So, yeah, love it.
So fantastic. And you can see, we're going to go through a few. There's fantastic artwork for the original series, the motion pictures. The pictures, there was quite a lot of promo, and the next generation, and everyone's favorite. We're going to look at Calvin serial as well in the Calvin timeline. There's some really unusual items there. Now we're going back to the first motion picture. And I think this is the same sort of artist who did the Doctor Who stuff. It's the British Weetabix, and it's an absolutely amazing promo. What they've done, which I think is great, and you'll see this in a couple of the Weetabix cards, they've not only concentrated on the main characters. When they were doing the research and the build-up to doing this promo, they've said, send us all your weird aliens. And consequently, there's a couple of scenes in the motion picture with like different aliens at Starfleet, and you don't even really get to see them. But in this promotion and some of the cards, you get a much better look at the costumes and the alien design. And I can imagine being a kid seeing these Weetabix cards come out and thinking how amazing this movie's going to be. It's going to have like a cantina scene from Star Wars, and then going along and seeing the long shots of the Enterprise for 45 minutes straight and being totally disappointed because of the serial premiums.
I love it. Actually, it's very funny. We were talking about this thing about you win the competition, you get on Next Generation, right? And then Michael said, become Will's buddy. You can almost bet your bottom dollar. You walk into a set that's just a blue screen. They just film you by yourself. Look around. That's what you're going to do. All right, piss off back to where you came from, and they'll just match you into the sequence as some character in the back. So you don't actually mix with the cast or the crew. So
I was going to say maybe the member of the audience was Will Wheaton, and they just couldn't get rid of him.
He just stuck around. I'm eating more cereal. See, my sugar smacked me the way is the way to go. Now, of course, as you mentioned, you can stick toys in the boxes themselves, or you can put stuff on the back of the box that you can get the scissors out and start cutting up. And of course, with Star Trek, the cool thing about it is you can make some ships, mate. How good's this?
Now, Star Trek did that, went that extra step further than just like doing the ships. They did full dioramas, and I think this is an ingenious use of the box as well, because not only did they use the back of the box, they used the whole box. So once you'd cut your ship off the back and put it together, you could open the box, reverse it, and then there was actually somewhere for you to display the ship and make a Star Trek diorama. So I couldn't find many of them online. Again, they must be very rare, but you can see the Enterprise there down the bottom, where the Enterprise is sitting on the specs about the Enterprise, and you can see the shuttlecraft landing in the shuttle bay, which is half the shuttlecraft coming into the box. And I just think that's an ingenious way to get a display. And also, when you think about it, the cereal's long gone, but the kids are displaying Weetabix in their room for years, so they're always going to have this like, maybe I should get some Weetabix for breakfast, and because they've got that association with their Star Trek toys.
Yeah, it's a lot of engineering work to design the ship in cardboard to be put together and then physically stick it on the box and print it and all. There's a lot of mucking around involved, but I guess if the end result is that you sell more cereal, and chances are you probably did, it'd be great. The only thing would be that you buy the cereal, you put your Enterprise together, you put your diorama. What happens when you've got it all and you go, well, okay, I don't need any more because I've got everything I need to get. So the only solution to that, of course, is to say, well, okay, if dioramas aren't your go, then maybe you could be your own character. Get a mask on your face, mate.
Now, the Americans got to jump on the cosplay, didn't they? Because this is Star Trek masks. And I always thought the Spock one was funny because the ears looked too big. But then when I was thinking about it, when you've curved it around your face, it probably actually works. But I do like the Klingon there, which is basically blackface for kids. And then you've got your Kirk and your McCoy, and you've also got your Sulu. So these are quite hard to get as well. I remember we did look at the Star Trek merchandise, and when I looked, I couldn't find all the masks. And this time around, I looked a bit further and did find the masks. And you can see now we've got to the Sugar Smacks with Mr. Spock, where they've got the adverts for Star Trek badges, and then they've also got the adverts for Crater Critters. So you can see where Crater Critters were so popular that they were using Star Trek as a license, and then they were licensing back their own creations in Star Trek. So that's pretty cool thing when you think about it.
Yeah, you can imagine you go to the cereal cabinet in the supermarket, you pull out the box, has Sulu on the back, and you go, "Oh my!" But you are right, though. I mean, the cool thing about it's one thing about putting the image of the things on the back of the box, but when you put them on the front, like you have with the Spock up here, right? Now, because Star Trek was really, really big at the time, even though the logo was on the wrong side of the shirt, it should be over there. That would have been such a big button pusher for the nerds, the Trek nerds. And for even people who said, you know what, I don't even eat this cereal, Sugar Smacks, I can't stand the stuff. I'll buy the box, pour the stuff out, right? Get rid of it because I want the box. It looks great. And of course, if the backs are all different and they have the mask, and of course you pick out your favorite character, it's the way to go. And you can almost think maybe the Klingon one would have been quite popular because Klingons were a bit of a thing back at the time. So it's very, very clever. And I'd love to see someone who says, I'm going to a Star Trek convention like today, as in whatever, who's actually got one of those cardboard masks, whether it be an original or reproduction, and have actually cut the eyes out, sticky taped it around and said, there you go, mate, I am good to go. Well, you can't tell me apart from the real thing.
I think it's funny. What would be really funny if someone cosplayed as a box of Cheerios and they just got that box and got it full size and they just had their head where Spock was or something like that.
That would be unbelievably clever. And it would probably win a prize in the competition. It will certainly get photographs and be circulated all around the world on Instagram, that's for sure. So, yeah.
Now, not wanting to be left out, Star Trek The Next Generation also made the leap over to Weetabix promos. These are interesting as well because it uses the same kind of promotion that they must have been using for years, but this is towards the end of the 80s. So you've got, again, the collectible cards, and then you've got the backdrop dioramas of Star Trek different scenes and the Enterprise bridge. And then you've also got a giant poster with all the stickers that you can put on it as well. So obviously it was a well-used format and worked across multiple generations. Now, here's the interesting thing for any of you Star Trek collectors out there. When I was looking at this episode, I found someone in America, actually, that has a box of these for $25 US, but they've advertised it as Next Generation, and they didn't realize it's actually a 70s one from the motion picture. And I was so close. It was buy it now to buy it now. And the killer for me was it was 25 postage as well. So 25 US for the box, 25 postage. But I thought that was actually quite a good deal because collecting boxes from this era, I know how rare they are. So if there's anyone who feels like they need a box of 30-year-old Weet-Bix or 50-year-old Weet-Bix, it's on eBay at the moment.
It's interesting to note the quality of the artwork has been beefed up as well. The characters look really, really good. The sets, especially the bridge. Everybody loved the bridge of the Enterprise in Next Generation. And some of the alien planets, just the thought and the work that's gone into it. And you can actually stick the characters on the thing. That is really cool. And I guess they had to sort of ramp up the quality a little bit because the cheap and nasty sort of had its day. And think, okay, if the quality is better, it'll actually appeal to adults as well. And maybe at some point, someone has said, okay, we're not just dealing with children, because Next Generation isn't a kid show really for the most part. They say, well, adults need to be dialed into as well. So if the quality of the artwork is better and it looks really, really Mickey Mouse, then that will bring in sales from them as well. And of course, you have a lot of characters, a lot of backgrounds, and as a consequence, you end up selling a lot more merchandise, food, which is particularly cool. So,
which is what they want to do. Now, here we go. We've jumped time tracks and we're into the Kelvin timeline here. And this isn't exactly in the wheelhouse of food premiums, but I had to bring them up. Eggos did Star Trek themed Eggos. So you opened your box of Eggos and there was actually Kirk and Spock and communicators and Live Long and Prosper actually printed onto them. And you can just imagine, Mum, I've got a Nero or something like that. What an amazing promo. Like, they do not look appetizing at all. I think it's one of the funniest things I've seen. But the new Star Trek series of motion pictures did get serial displays, and you can see they had quite nice boxes, and they had premiums as well that you could collect, and then they had the different backs and the different boxes. So Star Trek, it surprises me. It is one of the most tied in serial licenses there is, right up there with Star Wars.
Yeah, I can imagine the Nero ones are the ones that nobody wanted because, who gives a shit about him? And now he's worth a fortune for that very, very reason. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. You do wonder how well this stuff went. So there you go. But, we'll be back in a flash.
Yeah, we've jumped away from the Star Trek universe to, I think, one of the nicest promotions from Weetabix, and that's the Flash Gordon promotion from the 1980 movie. And I thought this was really catered for everyone because you've got the Flash Gordon boxes and the stencils you see, or the sort of coloring pages on the right of the screen, they were the inside of the boxes. So if you were a kid that was loving Flash Gordon, you could open up the boxes and each one of them had a scene that you could color in, and you've got Ming and the Hawkmen and Flash and Dale Arden. So that's just a bonus. I mean, cereal companies don't have to print the inside of their boxes, and I think that's just a nice little gesture for fans. But also it had an amazing promotion where you had the cinema cards, and the cinema cards you could send off for the album as well. So it sort of goes down that collector mentality where you can collect all the cards, and then when you've got all the cards, you can send off for the album to display them in. And then it's just a very colourful and really nice box that sort of stands out. And I've got a couple of those, and one of them's behind me, like I said. So...
yeah, depending on the sugar. The printing in the box would have been a logistical nightmare from the production point of view. So good on him for doing that. This is a very clever line. Flash Gordon saved the Earth. Now you can save him. So in other words, collect them all. Well, that's actually that's a nice little subtext in there. But yes, printing inside the box. It's like, oh my God, somebody would have said that in the marketing department. It'll be a huge hit. Go ahead and do it. So do you realize just how difficult that is to print both sides of the box? We have to run it through the printer twice. Oh, yeah. Would have been a pain in the ass, but the end result would have been really, really cool because the inside of the box was generally just brown cardboard. So,
William,
this one I did. Huh?
Sorry, William's got Gordon's eating Wheat Bix.
Gordon's eating Weetabix. So I'm not used to saying Weetabix because in Australia it's just Wheat Bix. They took the A out. I don't know why there's a difference. Maybe
well, I call them Weetabix and Wheat Bix. It sort of
goes. I've heard you say Weetabix, and I think, dude, mate, it's the wrong thing. But anyway, not to worry. So they did Flash Gordon, which I didn't even know about, and I thought that's kind of cool. This one really caught me off the left field. I go, okay, this is what you call marketing and merchandising to the max when you cashing in on just about everything. And, of course, it was the old black hole. Oh, dude, how about that?
This is one I did not know that they had ever done until I was looking into it for this episode, and now I instantly want all of those little black hole figures. But believe it or not only was there one black hole promo, there was two black hole promos. So they either got caught and couldn't get out of it, or it must have done well in the breakfast cereal aisles. But Shreddy's released a couple of premiums for Black Hole, and the first one was these decoder discs, which are basically the little Venetian blind type things where you push the picture one way, you see one thing, you push it the other way, and you see something totally different. And they were so successful that they released a second promotion of pencil holders. And they did basically the robots, which I think is the coolest thing they could have done. So you've got the standard robot, and then you've got Maximilian, and then you've got Bob, and then you've got Vincent as well. So you've got all the main robots. What I love about this, don't the boxes look amazingly colourful and fantastic?
Yeah, they've screwed up the robot thing, though. I mean, that's very generic. I mean, you've got all the characters, Bob, Vincent, Maximilian, as you said. That should be Star, this guy here. Yeah, so they really balls that one up. Maybe they couldn't think of his name. They go, just stick in a robot, that'll do. He's like, no. There was actually one who stood out from the rest. So, but yes, it does look very, very groovy. And you do wonder how successful it would have been because Black Hole did not exactly set the world on fire. But it looks very groovy, though.
It is one of those things where it probably didn't do well at the time, so it's rarer now and thus more appealing to collectors.
Yeah, for sure. But it does seem unusual. They should just put in the generic robot. But pencil holders. It's like, that's pretty groovy, actually. So something left field. Because the manufacturers obviously thought of the designers. They would have thought, you can't just have a generic figure. I mean, everybody else has done that. We need to have something that's completely different. And, of course, the idea being for kids, you get those and you take them to school. Because, back then you're using pencils instead of pens. Maybe that was the go. So, why not? Works for me. So, very, very cool. Yeah, believe it or not, so that actually brings us to the end of this episode.
Yep. So we looked at a few of the Sci-Fi TV related franchises and some of the movies this week. There are a lot more we can go through. So we're going to do a few of these. We might not do them all in a row, but we will look at some of the other things, and we'll be looking at kids' cartoons and tie-ins with that because there were some fantastic ones there going right back to Mickey Mouse in the 30s and 40s and all the way up to He-Man. And then the other big area, which is just a huge monster show, is superheroes and Batman, Superman, all of the DC and Marvel tie-ins. And then another one, which is a show on its own, is all the Star Wars tie-ins. So there's a lot of stuff we can look at here. It's all very evocative of the time that you grew up with and collected cereal, and a lot of it is very of its time as well, so you can pinpoint instantly when a lot of the premiums were done. So we hope you've enjoyed looking at breakfast cereals today, and we'll be back with them at another point in the future.
And it's also worth noting too, some companies said, okay, having the fancy boxes is all well and good, but now it's time to actually shape the flakes in the box, in the image of the characters or the logos or whatever. So they've made a point of really specializing in saying, oh no, now you're actually physically eating the actual thing. So rather than just standard wheat Bix or cornflakes, and of course when you get those, you can't eat the shit because it's like the stuff inside is just as collectible as the box that it's in. So
yeah,
very cool. Because to be fair, some of the cereals weren't exactly the best. Is that right there, Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, well, a lot of them were just different coloured sugar pellets, weren't they?
Yep, and a lot of rotting teeth are all over those generations were attributed to all these collectible boxes, which is absolutely fantastic. Anyway, so we're going to buzz off. We're going to leave you. Hope you enjoy that. Go out and have something to eat. We've probably made you really, really hungry now. And be wary of what you're eating inside your cereal, because it could be a rare collectible in that you're about to choke on. I'm not coughing up a furball. I'm coughing up a collectible. How good is that? So long as you enjoy it, and make sure you keep it a mint in the box, even if you're eating the box. So there you go. All right, we'll leave you to it. Party hard and rock on. We'll see you next week. Okay, see you guys.
Have a good night. See you guys.
Bye.